Okay. Let's go. Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Smudcast number 388, Retcons in Fallout 4. Why lore-breaking changes are not a big deal. Now, most people who care about continuity or lore or any sort of story you're reading or watching or playing, lore is kind of important. It's kind of the building blocks of any story, whether you're talking about a fantasy element or a scientific element or just details and descriptions. You kind of need to know things are the same way they are previously in the past. So this is difficult with games, especially the Fallout series, because they've been jumping around various studios and various people, various creative minds, and they think if you can just stick in a Deathclaw or power armor into your new Fallout game, it's going to make sense. But unfortunately, with a lot of Fallout games, there's lots of lore attributed to it, and I think it's like a lexiconic level of detail. So you have actual help menus and wikis that tell you, yeah, this was made at this time period in this era, and it's specific to that part of the story or that game you were playing. So that's where we start having problems, and it's not just for gameplay items, but also just information in general in the Fallout universe, which can cause some problems. I don't think they inherently break your immersion. I don't think anyone's like, oh, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. But you're dealing with like a Deathclaw right now. That's kind of more important than what you think a Deathclaw was back in Fallout 2, which was kind of cool. Because Fallout 2 was kind of the benchmark for me for Fallout games, because it sort of had this adult feel that you can get away with a lot of stuff. And then it built a lot of that world up. It had the inclusion of drugs and jet and all sorts of cool things like Gauss technology. And
then, of course, a retcon jet in Fallout 3.
Yes, they did. It traveled.
Oh, really?
It traveled, how far? I can't remember.
And then I think they retconned it in Fallout 4 even worse. They made it pre-war.
And the power armor, too.
Pre-war.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Jet pre-war, and then I think the explanation for why it contradicted Fallout 2 was supposed to be that Myron was lying about having created it or something. Myron, that was his name, right?
Byron Baby was his name. Myron Baby, or I think it was Myron. Yeah.
Myron, I think. Yeah, that obnoxious kid who tries to rape you if you're a low intelligence female character.
Oh God.
Really, that's cool.
He really does. Like, it's only something that happens if you're a low intelligence woman.
There's so much to Fallout 2. Fallout 2 is so amazing. Like, you have to keep going back to it every few years. You're like, what the hell? You could do that? Like, really?
Yeah, Fallout 2, the nice thing about Fallout 1 and 2 and New Vegas as well is the Black Isle, later Obsidian guys actually understood the concept of role playing. Is that what they call it?
What's that?
Role playing?
Yeah, they give you
in their role playing game.
Yeah, it's great.
You mean online?
No, not online.
Which is a bit of a lost art.
Yeah, and
it's actually role playing in your role playing game.
I like how the comedy. I think was it Tim, or was it Chris? I don't know who came up with most of the comedy in Fallout. There's lots of guys who did it, and you could see where they're trying to be funny, and when they're not going, they're like, okay, this is just enough comedy. It's too goofy. We can't go too far. Let's keep it back to being dirty and serious and mundane and horrible, which is what the world is. And then I think some of that was lost in Fallout 3, the translation to 3D, because you see everything. Everything's in detail. It's not as, I don't know, it doesn't feel the same, even though it is the same lore. So, well, actually, no, some of the lore was changed in Fallout 3 as well.
Well, and there's more of a disconnect when you're just being told what things look like, and you have to imagine it yourself.
Right. That was
especially when, like, if you look at a lot of the flavor text when you click on something, like when you try to use a machine you can't use or whatever, you click on something that's broken. A lot of that flavor text in Fallout 1 and 2 had kind of a snarky edge to it, which is not something that happens when you're just looking at a broken machine.
Right.
And you see visually, oh, this is broken, I can't use it.
It had that adventure game quality where the text on the screen would pop up and tell you what the hell you're doing or something like that.
Yeah, where the narrator, like, not the narrator, but where like the overworld is almost its own character.
Yeah, it's great. Plus, you had some actual combat mechanics in there as well. You had the hexagonal turn-based mode, and you had all this wonderful inventory or limited inventory to get all your wonderful bullets and Gauss guns and all that awesome stuff, like the Bozar, that was just fun to find and use. And with all these other comedic elements, all these references and in-jokes to Monty Python and Mad Max and stuff that you weren't like, oh yeah, if you knew this stuff, you would appreciate that. You'd be like, okay, I get where these guys are coming from. I know who these guys are. And that was always cool for me, especially in Fallout 2. You kind of lost that a bit, but the influence has been... I was playing Pathfinder all this week, and I took a screen cap, I don't know if I saved it though, of a vault that the door opens up just like Fallout, and there's the guys in there, and they call themselves the Mine 13 or Miners 14 or something. Okay, that's as far as it goes for the Fallout reference, but it's been so influential that other games are now referencing Fallout as this benchmark for, I guess, survival open world gaming. I don't know.
Yeah. Although, I mean, to me, while Fallout 2 is kind of the benchmark for Fallout, I thought Fallout 2, there were some times I thought it got a little too silly.
Yeah.
Like when you get a little too heavy on pop culture reference, like that's not funny to me. I get that some people laugh when they see like, or like, you know, you'll get a random encounter with a TARDIS or whatever, or something from Monty Python. You'll laugh at it because you remember that reference. To me, that's not funny. So I think they laid it on a little thick, but for all that, I think Fallout 2 still is like the core of Fallout 2 is still serious enough, and the story is still well put together.
Yeah.
So I think it still congeals better than any of the other ones.
I think
Fallout 1 was a little too grim.
Yeah, I would say 2 is more... it's pretty much the same game, only 2 is more refined, and it works off what came before it. And, like, there's a time limit. Like, you don't realize that until you start sleeping, and your telepathic whatever that's called, the connection to your spirit tribe, whatever elder, she's like, oh, we need the Gek. Oh, you have to keep running around until you find it, and then the time limit can finally go away. Then you can actually play the game, which is way at the end of the game to roam around. So,
and what I do like about Fallout 2, like I like a lot of the comedy that works for me in Fallout 2 is the stuff where it's kind of like, it's not the pop culture stuff. It's stuff like, you know how you're the chosen one in that game, right? So one of my favorite recurring bits is when you tell people outside your tiny little tribal village that you're the chosen one, and they're like, what does that mean? Who is this guy?
Yeah, you have this crazy obsession with the Gek, and everyone's like, a gecko? What are you talking about?
Yeah. And like you tell people, you go around telling people, oh yes, I'm the chosen one from the prophecy. And they're like, okay, buddy, if you say so. So that to me is funny. That's the kind of thing that works because it's something that's not like, it doesn't pull you out. It's something that works in universe as like people reacting to this weirdo. And it's also on a meta level funny because you are the chosen one, you know that, and it means something to you as the player. But like in universe, like, who are you? You're just like some guy from that nobody's ever heard of from where you in Northern California? I don't even remember where Arroyo was supposed to be, but it's been a little bit too long since I played Fallout 2. I need to play it again.
It was
Maybe I'll play it
definitely
again
California,
right now during the stream. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure you're still in California.
Yeah, I guess how we learned about President Tandy and the New California Republic, and they already had a GEC and all that other stuff that went along with there. So yeah, it was based around California the same way Fallout 4 was based around, I think, Boston. And
right, because in Fallout 1 you're in like Southern California.
Right, yeah.
Because you're in like Los Angeles and such. I couldn't remember where Arroyo was supposed to be.
Right, that's when they had New Reno in Fallout 2. So it was like, again, it's Fallout 1, just a bit better, a bit more. Like the same idea. Like Ghostbusters 2 is just the same as Ghostbusters 1, but same plot pretty much, just a little bit more stuff to it. Probably not the best comparison because people love the first one more than the second Ghostbusters, but I actually enjoyed Fallout 2 more just because it had stuff that Fallout 1 didn't have. And I did appreciate the plot having you forced to go get that damn GEC because there's so many places to just navigate and wonder what's going to happen to you. And usually it's a bad idea to just run off into the wilderness and just find stuff because you usually get killed. But once you get that car and you're like fueling it to go explore, that's where you're like, all right, I got a car. This is Mad Max now. And they've never gone back to that. They've never had the car yet, unless it's a modded in Fallout 4, but it didn't really feel the same. So I like that idea. You're exploring, you've got your dog or a dog with you, and you're just trying to figure out how to save your tribe. Because that's what would happen in the future of nuclear fallout. You'd huddle together with your tribe, and you'd go back to bare bones. And then you find this new technology that is a miracle thing that can solve all your problems, or solve most of your problems, bring you back to some reasonable level of civilization. And it's all the wonderful jokes and tests that the Vault Tech company did on all the vaults, and the crazy ideas that they subjugated people to. So wonderful, wonderful lore. Anyway, let's get on with the video. It's, let me see, it's almost 21 minutes. Okay, Oxhorn. We've covered an Oxhorn video before, so he's fairly popular, and he made this video 4 years ago, and it's got about 370,000 views. So fairly popular. Oh, I can see downvotes now, so that's great. It's got 9,000 upvotes, 1.7 thousand downvotes. So I guess.
Well, what do you guys think?
Well, okay, we have to watch the video.
Changes are not a big deal.
Obviously, we have to watch the video to see his arguments, but in general, lore-breaking changes are usually a bad thing. For obvious reasons.
Like I kind of like continuity in my long-running stories.
Would be nice.
And I understand, like, maybe it can be tough to do that, especially when it's a video game, so there's a team and probably a bunch of writers.
Yeah.
Like, there was one of the writers of Fallout New Vegas, I don't even remember his name now, who Chris Avalone shouted out recently, who had never heard his name before, and like I said, I don't even remember it now, but, like, yeah, you can't always know who wrote what, and there's a lot of people writing, lore, characters, quests, etc. So it can be hard to keep continuity, but I think you should have somebody whose job it is to basically try to do that, and like respect the canon of the franchise that you're working on. Of course, the big issue is we are talking about a series where the gap between mainline releases, I'm not counting Tactics, and I'm certainly not counting Brotherhood of Steel.
Oh,
Ooh,
forgot
no.
about those.
When did Fallout 2 come out? Like 99 or something?
Yeah, it was right around when Planescape came out as well. So
Yeah, because Fallout 1 was 97, and Fallout 2 I think was 99, and then Fallout 3 came out in what, like 2008 or 9?
8.
Yeah, 2008. That's right. It was the first game I ever drove myself to go buy.
Nice.
I remember
and then
because
my car wouldn't start when I was trying to go home afterwards.
I remember because
Oh.
Planescape came out in December '99, and no one knew anything about it. This is when the internet was pretty fresh, so
Right.
we were like, "What the hell is that?" It's another Black Isle game, right? Okay, they're good. And for them to pump out Baldur's Gate the year before was like, oh, awesome. The guys who do Baldur's Gate, it's got to be great. And, at the time, we had no idea what the hell Planescape was. A lot of people didn't like it because it was so weird. And there was
It is weird.
Yeah,
but
there's no swords. Like, where are all the weapons? Like, you can't equip anything. What's going on?
That's not the point. It's not the point, guys.
Ended up being the
point is
greatest game
philosophy.
of our experience playing games, at least for me.
The point is what can change the nature of a man. That's the point.
You know what?
Guys.
I would disagree with that, but that was certainly a focus of the narrative. So
I mean, okay, yeah, it's not the point, but I
It's
just
definitely up
that's
there.
I know it's just something that gets asked a bunch of times.
Exactly. Yeah. One of those.
It's about philosophy. It's about finding yourself literally and breaking this. It's not about the combat, guys. Solve your problems with words. Put all your points in wisdom and intelligence. Don't worry
There
about
you
everything
go.
else.
That's exactly. Everyone should do that if you ever play Planescape Tournament. Breaks all the rules of RPGs.
It's about making such a popular Githzerai character that they rewrite the entire race around it.
I know. I keep saying. Well, this is why I stopped my my plot analysis, and we talked about Decon, and he is the heart and the philosophy of Planescape. And once you realize that, and what he went through, and why he's there, and what you did to him, it makes you go, "Oh, this is valuable. This is important. This guy knows what's going on, even though he doesn't know it's fake. The religion is fake. He still believes in it, which is to me is fascinating because you have this guy who is completely devoted and forcing himself through a promise he made through honor, and you just did it on a whim in one of your past lives because you were so super genius. You're like, oh, I could just bend this guy to my will and create a religion out of thin air.
Yeah.
Which is nefarious and scary. And all that philosophy came out of that. You're like, really? You invented this interlocking disc to create philosophy and religion? It's like that's crazy. So
somebody in chat said that Fallout 2 was 1998. Okay.
Oh, okay.
98. Cool. So that's 10 years.
That's a game a year. That's crazy.
Releases.
From
Yeah, it is.
Baldur's Gate, December 98. Fallout must have come out before that. And then Planescape came out in December the year later. Jeez.
And then the Mechanist said the writer of KOTOR 2 didn't like Star Wars. Yeah, that was Chris Avallone. He wrote Kreia, and it's why I don't like Kreia.
Well, I think Chris loved the first KOTOR because I remember him talking about it. And he was really trying to get the rights to work on KOTOR 2, and he got it. So that is, when you see a guy who just throws his joystick down after playing a game, he's like, I want to work on this sequel. To the point where he's successful because he doesn't like Star Wars, and that's what he wanted to talk about in KOTOR 2, which is an interesting reason to make a story on the lore.
Which is, of course, basically the same thing that has happened with the KOTOR remake. The difference is Chris Avallone is an extremely talented writer, and
Yes.
the woman who is now the lead writer of the KOTOR remake is a hack.
I don't know.
Did you see that news?
Yeah, I did see that. The question is, I don't know what it means, because if all you're doing is rewriting what's already there, to me, that's not a job. All you're doing is copying and pasting and making
Yeah, but that's why I'm so concerned is,
Yeah, I know.
like, is it going to be a faithful one-to-one remake now, or is she going to touch up the dialogue because this is a woman who wrote Anthem. She didn't write Anthem. She wrote for Anthem.
Yeah.
She wrote like a bit part for Anthem, and somehow through that failed upwards into being the lead writer for the new Ratchet and Clank that just came out.
I see it more like she's given the head chef role of a factory, but all she's doing is giving cookie cutter molds, and she just,
Yeah, I hope so.
that's all she's doing is going pressing down on the dough and then putting it in the oven. That's it. That's her job.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. Like, I hope this is the equivalent of being the head chef at a fast food place where all you do is push buttons on the machine. But
that's how I see it. But I could be wrong.
But I am concerned. Like,
I mean, you have to make modifications.
This is a woman who
while,
thinks.
right?
This is a woman who thinks the best Star Wars movie was TLJ. So that's what we're dealing with the remake. Written by a woman who thinks that TLJ was the best Star Wars, made by a company that does nothing but ports.
Anyway, let's get started. I'm going to read some super chats.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with Fallout.
And get on the video finally. Here's Ubermorph. Hey, thank you, Ubermorph. Can't wait for Oxhorn to get to Billy the Ghoul Kid and how it apparently doesn't contradict Necropolis from Fallout 1. Oh, boy. That's
where ghouls need water, and then Billy survived in a fridge for 200 years.
That's some old lore. Wow. Okay, good stuff, man. Joe Crazy. Pop culture heavy, you mean Fallout Frontier? Well, I don't think anyone likes that mod after a certain point. It was kind of redundant to some people. It was the most well-advertised mod, I think, for Fallout. The trailer was very good.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Looked cool.
And
but
now it came out.
Yeah.
Now people are getting hyped for Fallout Miami, which hopefully is not does not crap the bed
Still
like
not
the
out?
Frontier did.
No.
I don't think so. Oh wait, no, the most hyped up Fallout release or mod release was probably Fallout New California.
Okay. I haven't really noticed it, but it's there. It's definitely there. To Tim 505, thank you for the 5. Did you hear the writer for KOTOR doesn't like KOTOR? Like, why hire them? Okay, again, we talked about that. This is Sam Maggs. Okay, she's a weirdo.
This is the
She's the
GTA
woman
virtual.
Yeah.
Virtual rape.
This is apparently some media guru in Canada that no one's ever heard of, and I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, great.
This is another Canadian?
Don't ask. Don't ask where they come from. I couldn't tell you.
I don't understand how these people keep failing upwards.
I know. Weirdos. They're just weirdos with connections. It doesn't make sense.
Like you write garbage for a game that's one of the most legendary failures in the last 5 years, and that gets you put on Insomniac writing DLC, and you write the worst DLC for the game that you're working on, and somehow that gets you parlay that into lead writer for the new Call of Duty.
While bitching about being virtually raped on, was it Jezebel or the Mary Sue? I can't remember.
That was on the news.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah.
Oh.
The news loved that one.
Anyway, let's get on with the video. 21 minutes. Let's go.
Hello there, gentlemen. This is Oxhorn, and today let's talk a little bit about alleged contradictions in Fallout 4. You all know that I love Fallout 4, but one of the major complaints that my viewers have with Fallout 4 is how it contradicts the established lore from previous Fallout titles. Now, I want to make a distinction between contradiction and retcon. A contradiction only takes place when two things cannot be true at the same time. Let's say a blind man asked two friends to describe a zebra. One friend says it's black. The other friend says it's white. This at first appears to be a contradiction, but it's not. Both of the friends are correct. The zebra is black,
both
but
of the
it is
friends are
also
retarded.
white. The zebra is both black and white.
What a strange analogy.
Wait, what?
That's a bizarre analogy. Like,
What?
Describe the thing to a blind man. Okay.
That doesn't sound like a contradiction.
Do you know
I mean,
that-
it does, because one's saying it's black, one's saying it's white. Both of the friends are not correct. Both of the friends are brain dead.
Can my blind friend understand color? I have no idea, but let me use those to describe a thing. Oh yeah, I'll describe it halfway. Like what?
Could he not Google the definition? That sounds easier to do than trying
Well,
to come up with a weird scenario.
We're
like
trying to
this.
have multiple criteria for explanations of something or a definition of something, and yes, a zebra is black. Yes, a zebra is white, but that's not how. Like, we don't think of a zebra that way. No one goes the black-white horse. We go no, the striped horse-like animal, or what have you. That's the definition. It's the stripe. When we think zebra, we think stripes. So you could have a purple orange zebra. We don't care. We invent all sorts of colors. That's the idea. To call an animal black is like that. Hey, let's just describe Jeff. Well, he's orange. Like what? What do you mean he's orange? Is he covered in oranges? Does he get burnt by the sun? Did he, I don't know, spray paint his body? Like what's?
He's also green.
Yeah, it's not a very good descriptor. Like
Those sound like a contradiction, but really, Jeff is orange and green striped.
it's yeah, a rainbow. A rainbow is blue. You're like, okay. Like the sky is blue. Like what are you talking about? So, yeah, very very poor analogy. I know what he's trying to say. He's doing it poorly. Anyway. Let's go.
I know. That's the sad part. I know.
Like
he
you
wants
could
to
give a better example of like an incomplete analogy where
Yeah.
two things sound contradictory, but they aren't.
All right.
That's not. Instead, the blind man simply got two different true answers. Here's an example of a contradiction. A blind man asks his friend, "Can you see stripes on the zebra?" And the friend says, "No, I can't." The blind man then asks, "Well, then how do you know that it's black and white?" And the friend responds, "Because I can see the stripes." That's a contradiction. He can't bowl.
Wait. So first time he says he can, now he can't? What?
That's not that's a lie.
What are these analogies? What is he talking
This is such a what?
Just Google the definitions if you don't know.
No, I
dude.
think-
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know. This is like such a weird choice of way to explain this. I don't get it.
I think
I feel sorry for the blind man. He's just
I
God,
think Oxhorn's not very good at giving hypothetical or theoretical examples for explaining things.
Did this guy go to a university?
No.
No.
I
okay.
highly, if this is his level of
Called himself
explanation,
Oxford, but okay.
you'll see it through his English as he communicates later in the video. It's very repetitive. And I'm like, okay, you didn't have to say it that long. But anyway.
He finds 5 different
You do
ways
if
to
you
say
want.
the same thing.
You do if you want a mid-roll ad.
I guess. I don't know what his point was just explaining things very slowly and long. I'm like, dude, we're not morons.
I mean, maybe his
stripes
fans are.
and not be able to see the stripes at the same time. Now, a retcon can be contradictory, but it is not always contradictory. A retcon, or retroactive continuity, happens when an author alters what was supposed to be a fact of lore established in a previous piece of work. Now, according to the Wikipedia article on the topic, there are 4 different kinds of retcons: addition retcons, alteration retcons, subtraction retcons, and temporal compression retcons. But for the purpose
Temporal compression. What the? Okay. I didn't know that one.
I guess that would mean
Are these real examples that he's using right now?
Yes.
Like real definitions? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess the temporal compression retcon would be like where you retcon something that to have taken less time, or two things to have happened closer together than originally established.
It could be like let's bring up TLJ again when they show the scene where Skywalker is about to attack Kylo, and they show it 3 times. That might be something along those lines, where it's an event. They describe it differently every time. that could be a temporal retcon, I guess. But the way he said it, though, is what really confused me, because he said retcon 4 times. Like, dude, just give...
No, he said retcon 4 times.
It's like, we get the word. We got it the first time. Just give us the categories, please.
He very clearly enunciated the word retcon.
Yeah, he has that cadence in his voice, doesn't he? He's sort of... Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da.
It's like he's talking in iambic pentameter. It's weird.
To like
I mean, he's not, but like it kind of sounds... It sounds like he's trying to sound like poetic almost.
Yeah, it's like
odd.
he's reclining in his leather chair and explaining things to a 6-year-old or something like that.
Because it's not like the video essay voice, and it's not like the Vosh debate man voice, but it's weird. It's like he's like a kindergarten teacher.
Anyway.
For purposes of this video and for Fallout 4, I only want to talk about 2, addition and alteration retcons. An addition retcon simply fills in missing details about the lore. These details had not been provided in previous games or previous books, which may have led readers or viewers to make different assumptions about the world.
Okay, so there's nothing inherently wrong with adding more information to an idea, a place, an event, a person. The retcon part is when you do add something that contradicts what came before. So
I mean, not necessarily. Like, I get what he's saying. Retcon is really just, you can fill in a missing piece, and technically that is a retcon. But yeah, a lot of times it will contradict what happened before.
Right.
And you have to be on the lookout for that.
That's why we use the term. If it wasn't a contradiction, we wouldn't use the term retcon. It's just more information. Right. So
and there isn't anything inherently wrong with that. The problem, a lot of the times, it's how you handle it. Like, retcons can be stupid even if they don't contradict previous information.
I'm trying to think. There should be an update of information which invalidates something that came before. And you can get away with it when people simply don't know because they're in another time and place, or there's some explanation like they're a researcher or a historian or a scientist and they discover something new and their ideas are different than what was established as being, empirical or whatever. So stuff like that can always pop up so long as there's sufficient explanation. That's what I meant by updating information, whether you're doing an adaptation or an expectation of what came before, like let's say how lightsabers work. And if you suddenly discover they can, be randomly extended to really 3 meters in length, it's like, whoa, that's kind of strange. Can all lightsabers do that? And the person asks and goes, yeah. It's like, really? That doesn't sound right. Now you have a light spear or some sort of deadly weapon, which would change the entire fighting and history of the Jedi and the Sith. So stuff like that would have to be very careful. That's why we have lore masters or people like directors or producers who know this stuff, and they say, listen, we can't add that. That would break stuff, not just empirically, but socially and physically and all kinds of other methods of explanation and rationale for your lore. So having a problem like someone who's 5'8" in the past, now they're 5'9", you could sort of say, oh yeah, maybe they got shoes that are bigger or something. Like, okay, fine. But if they're shrinking, then you would say, well, maybe they had shoes in the past. So then you have to look at that and figure out when that information was given. Were they measured without shoes in the past? Were they measured with shoes in the all these stupid things you have to start asking when retcons pop up. So
that actually happens over the course of several books in the Dresden Files series. There is a character who Harry describes as being just under 6 feet tall, and then later he's described as being 6 feet tall, and then a little over 6 feet tall, and this and that. Like, he's described at different heights at different times. So after 6 or 7 books of that happening, part of this character is he has a disguise of sorts, where a secret identity where he has a day job play acting as a hairstylist, a very foppishly gay hairstylist. So the explanation we get like 7 or 8 books after this is because as part of his really camp gay character that he puts on, he's always wearing shoes that are like, sometimes they're platform shoes, sometimes they're flat, this and that, the other thing. So that's why his height, the description of his height keeps changing. So that would be a retcon, because the author, Jim Butcher, I guess really what happened, I think he said he forgot from book to book what height he described his character as.
That's great.
Okay.
But it ends up working in universe as an explanation, because it is like this guy does dress up in a really camp way, like, because he's supposed to be a hairstylist at this like really frou-frou upscale boutique.
Yeah, if you guys don't know,
he's always wearing these fancy designer clothes.
If you guys don't know what the Dresden Files are, it's basically a wizard running around solving crimes.
Yes.
And when you have magic, you can get away. You sometimes can get away with some retcons, but so long as there's an explanation in the update that could seem like a retcon, it's just like, well, maybe I didn't pay attention in the first book. I have to rewind and find out.
It's also part of it is the books are all written in first person from Harry Dresden's perspective. So you can also get away with retconning some of that as, oh, well, this information was wrong because Harry was wrong about it.
Exactly. It's a very good point.
He had the wrong information.
So the narrator is not...
He had an incomplete picture or whatever.
Yes, you can get away... When you have third-person omniscient, or when you have a video game where it's laid out for you and visually shown to you and told to you, that's where you have problems. When you have a narrator in a book who is not God, essentially, he can screw it up, which is totally viable. And I guess that's also an argument for making a writer lazy, because they don't have to worry about too much. But
yeah, although if you're a talented writer, you can even use that to your advantage. Like in the Dresden Files, there's a couple of books where details get left out, like things that you think Harry should notice because there's stuff he notices all the time. And we find out later in the books that there's a reason why it happened. And it's like, you go back and you read it a second time and you notice a lot of times you notice what was missing. And then you'll find out, oh, it's because this thing happened. Like in one case, he gets his brain altered by somebody. So he forgets about something that he normally would not forget about. And there's a good in-story reason why he forgets about it. And so you can play around with that. And in the context of something like Fallout, that can also work if, like, let's say you have contradictory accounts of historical events in Fallout, like something as basic as who launched the first nuke. You can get away with that if you are not having the story writer or an omniscient narrator say, this is what happened. By just having, like, let's say it is who fired the first nuke. You can have letters that are communiques between American military talking about how it's China firing first. You can have someone from China who is infiltrating the U.S. or hypothetically a ghoulified Chinese submarine captain talk about how it was America who fired the first nuke. You can have, you can get away with it, but it's something you have to be a lot more careful about when you're in a video game, because you do still want to have stuff that is objectively what happened.
Yeah,
you want some objectivity in your lore.
usually writers these days, when they create a character, they actually just list out all the characteristics. Like, he's 5 foot this, he's this tall, this wide, from this background, and they just like a character sheet, and they just start using that character in their story, and off they go. So not everyone does that, of course, but I see that a lot, where they'll send me their notes on their scripts. I'm like, that's cool. Doesn't really help me understand your story, but it's fun to see the thought process of writers and how they build their worlds before they get to writing, which is always good.
Yeah, I do it to make sure that I'm not writing anything contradictory between people, and so that I remember, okay, this is the relationship I'm giving these two characters, so they should be acting in this particular way, like, so that I'm like, okay, why am I having these two people who have known each other for 20 years talk like they just met 5 minutes ago, kind of a thing. So yeah, like, it is like, this is the thing, kind of a broad point related to retconning, but like, writing is kind of hard. There's a lot that goes into it. So retconning, I kind of think of as being lazy. Like, you just didn't bother to come up with an explanation beforehand, and then you're like, oh, I'll just put that in later.
Well, not only that.
Although, in
the
case of something like Fallout, you have a completely different team working on it 10 years later. So
yeah, it's a hindsight by the writer doing the job, and no one else on the team. Like, a team of a video game could be a few people, it could be 100 people, and if no one picks this up, QA doesn't pick this up, it's not going to get noticed. And this is why you have public QA or early release for fans or whatever. I don't know how they would call that these days. I guess it's not before it hits Steam. What I'm saying is, before that, they call in actual fans of the series or the game or the company to do some QA and say, what do you think? And they will pick out, oh yeah, this is good, this is bad. And very rarely you'll get people paying attention to the lore unless they're experts, like Star Wars fans or what have you. So
you should have a lore master or like a continuity person.
Yes, I think I've said that lots of times all throughout this channel. Is just, you need, if you're going to do anything with a big world building idea, or where you're going to be describing stuff, take notes. Keep it in your Bible, keep it in whatever treasure chest you have for memory, and lock it in, and don't forget it. And
if you're a team, like if you're a video game developer or a screenwriter or something, and you need like lore advice, you need someone checking the lore, go on the fan wiki of your series, find whoever edits it the most, and hire that person, because that person is your most obsessive, detail-oriented fan who probably knows more than you do.
There you go.
I think George R.R. Martin did that.
I wish he would have hired other writers to finish his work then, if that's the case.
Yeah, a ghostwriter, not just
not a wiki guy, an actual writer.
Like, I think he said he hired, or he got, like, people who worked on, like, Game of Thrones fan wikis or fan books or whatever, fan encyclopedias, to help him keep everything straight.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Interesting. Okay, anyway, let's keep going.
But since those things had not been clarified in previous works, the author takes the opportunity to explain those things in a contemporary work. In this way, these new details may explain things that had been set in stone in previous games. Addition retcons are not contradictions. They simply add to the world.
Whoa. They certainly can be.
Yeah, exactly. Like, as we said before, 5'8", 5'9", etc.
Let's use a narrower brush here, Ox. Addition retcons absolutely can contradict previous information.
Didn't you say
for
earlier?
For example, having a ghoulified kid survive in a refrigerator for 200 years. It is an addition retcon to have this ghoulified kid survive without food or water for 200 years. And it contradicts existing lore. like ghouls have the capacity to survive for 200 years without food or water is an addition, and it contradicts something that happened already. Am I wrong?
Also,
Wouldn't that be it?
Isn't the kid also like there was never any ghoul kids before, was there?
Well, there were ghouls in the first Fallout as well as the second one, so
Right.
I don't know about kids.
I thought there was
specifically.
a reason behind like there was never kids that were able to ghoulify. Like I forget what the transformation process was like when you become a ghoul. It's through the radiation, right?
Yes. Which, I mean, it's certainly within the realm of possibility that a child could have been exposed to radiation and respond with ghoulification the same way an adult did. That's not the part that contradicts anything. That would be an addition, retcon, technically, if we've never seen a ghoul child before.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, of course, in Fallout 2, I think there is a ghoul who's like been in a coma for a long time without food or water because they don't have IVs or anything. So I don't know, like maybe there is precedent for ghouls being able to survive without consuming anything, but like it's been 2 centuries that this kid has been locked up.
Wouldn't he become feral though? I thought that was a thing.
Well, it affects the brain, I would say, and once that goes, then they became this feral, crazy there's too much radiation, therefore they become nuts. So, but other than that, as we've seen in Fallout 3 and 4, or even New Vegas, they're immortal, essentially, and they don't need for food. They don't need for. Do they even sleep? I don't think so.
Ferals? I don't know.
I think they sleep.
Not sure, but they're kind of the weird mutant generic
I don't
creature.
know. Do we know that feral ghouls don't eat or drink?
They
Because they're lurking in the subways, right?
They're just hunting stuff for whatever reason. I don't know why. There must be
Fallout
some.
4, sure, they're living in the subways. They're not living in the subways in New Vegas.
No.
Well, 3 they were also.
Yeah. I don't know.
I have to look that up, but there were definitely changes to it. So
Totally possible for an addition retcon to exist in the world before the new piece of work was published. So to clarify, if Fallout 4 creates an addition retcon, this retcon must be able to exist in the world of Fallout even if the game Fallout 4 had never been created, because it does not
well, not necessarily. I mean, we're talking about a different area and time in Fallout 4 than we are in the original Fallout. So there can be other versions of power armor. That's totally possible in this alternate time and place. It's the same universe, just different time and place. You can invent new stuff. That's the great thing about telling a story in the same universe by just adding more. So long as you get your facts right of, let's say, what's the power armor, T1B or 51B? Like you can make T50 or T49 or T52, like whatever came after, you can do that and talk about that and leave that old lore behind or barely mention it because it's your own world now in your own setting. You can play around with, hey, let's invent a new power armor. Let's invent a new laser gun. And they did with was it the cyclic laser gun or the chart? You have to like add a crank on it. That was kind of cool.
Laser musket.
Yeah, that was cool. I thought that was a great idea.
There actually is a contradiction, I think, with the power armor in Fallout 4, because I think the power armor you get in Nuka World, maybe, is power armor that the Brotherhood of Steel made.
Oh, okay.
Or something. I forget. I think it's power armor. Maybe it's not Nuka World, but there's some like pre-war power armor you get in Fallout 4,
which doesn't make sense.
The first power armor you get is that pre-war.
It was armor that, well, there was power armor pre-war. That's not the problem, but there's a suit of power armor you can get in Fallout 4 that's pre-war that I think is the model of power armor that was made by and for the Enclave, which is post-war.
Oh,
Not for the U.S. government, for the Enclave
the
specifically.
Enclave, yeah.
Before the Enclave existed, yeah.
Right,
Oh,
so
okay.
it was made pre-war. It's pre-war power armor of the model that was used by the Enclave that was made
I recall
in Fallout 2.
I recall the whole, not the redesign or whatever you want to call, because obviously they animated getting into the power armor in Fallout 4. But one of the main gameplay elements was you had to get the fuel source, which was a microcell or one of those types of energy sources. And this is obviously a gameplay mechanic, and this is where we have a disconnect between
Fusion cores.
Yeah, whatever they're called. I can't remember. It's been a while since I played Fallout 4.
The fusion core.
But once you put it in, and there was that older version of power armor to fight whatever at the start of Fallout 4, it's like, wow, this is really draining the battery. Like, this is probably not the way it should be. And you're like, oh, well, it's just old. The battery's almost drained anyway. This is not how it should be. And you're like, well, then you get a new one, and then you get a better battery. It's just the same drain. Like, this is not power armor. This is some weird, like, debilitated version of power armor. This is not how it should be. Power armor is, you put it in, it lasts pretty much forever. You're good to go. You just have to be trained how to use it. And that was it. It wasn't like,
And now you don't need the training.
Well, yeah, there's a bunch of crap with that as well I didn't like. But it was for a gameplay mechanic. So you go, okay, this is sacrificing lore for gameplay. You don't have to do that, but I understand why. Like, there's a reason for it. They're reinventing power armor. It's like, okay, I can sort of buy it. I see what you're trying to do. It doesn't explain much, but I can run with that, and I can respect the game design having higher priority than lore because it's a game. I understand that. But and I think they argued that with Bethesda, and they did change the drain on the juice for the core. I think they did in the next update. So they wanted to keep the mechanic.
Yeah, they must have, because I remember it was lasting longer than it before.
I think so, yeah. I only played it twice, and I was like, this is different. It's still the same mechanic, but it feels different. So anyway, the ideas behind Fallout 4 still worked. So configuring your power armor, upgrading your weapons, all that was stuff that we missed in New Vegas. So they obviously can listen to their fans and update stuff accordingly. How that translated to Fallout 76, I couldn't tell you, but they're still listening to the fans. People are still playing it, so it must still be working for them. So good for them. Anyway,
they had added a story mode finally.
Oh yeah,
76.
Oh my god, that doesn't sound good.
Okay, so it's the XO1 power armor, and Fallout 4's loading screens said it was made shortly after the bombs fell, or it was made after the war.
Oh.
For the U.S. government. Hang on, let me find it here. The XO1 series of power armor was specifically engineered and employed by remnants of the U.S. military after the Great War and offers increased protection over the older pre-war models. So not only does it contradict the existing lore to have it show up pre-war, like not only did it contradict Fallout 1 and 2 to have it show up in pre-war Nuka World, it contradicts Fallout 4 to have it show up in pre-war Nuka World.
Yep.
And if you do remember the design of power armor and the cover of Fallout 2, it was very specific to the first kind you get, which is kind of a rickety version, which is the 49B, was it? I can't remember what flavor. But it had a very distinct look. And then when you get the Enclave power armor, it's very different. And same thing in New Vegas. So at least New Vegas got it pretty close. So anyway.
contradict with any of the other established lore. An example of an addition retcon in Fallout 4 is the Deathclaw. The Deathclaw has evolved in the Fallout universe ever since the very first Fallout game. We all know that the Deathclaw is actually a mutant Jackson's chameleon. The Jackson's chameleon is a three-horned chameleon native to East Africa, but recently introduced to America. You can find it in California, Hawaii, and Florida. The United States government researched the Deathclaw before the war, which is why we find a Deathclaw head inside the RoboBrain factory, but it was actually the Master who refined the Deathclaw by subjecting them to the Forced Evolutionary Virus, or FEV. Now, we learn early in the lore of Fallout that the chameleon does not have vocal cords and has lost its ability to change color. The problem, of course, is that the Deathclaws in the world of Fallout 4 have an ear-splitting roar, and at high levels you can come upon the chameleon Deathclaw. This Deathclaw can change colors during the course of a fight. What's the deal? Is this a contradiction? No, I argue that this is an addition retcon. And I say that because scientists in our own world frequently retcon reality. For example, for hundreds of years, scientists thought that the Laotian rock rat was extinct. They thought it went extinct 11 million years ago.
Okay, so this probably
How does that make sense?
Probably not the best argument when you're talking about the extinction of animals. You say, hey, here's a dead body of an animal we've never seen before. They must no longer exist. And then you find new information that shows they do exist. You're like, well, that's not a retcon. That's just new information. You thought they died off. They didn't. It's like, oh, there's a whole new rock over there we haven't uncovered yet.
I mean, I guess it's what he's saying is that's technically an addition retcon because it's new information we didn't have previously. But, like, chameleon...
retcon reality?
Like, I guess... Well, he's using the broadest possible definition of retcon, where it's literally any new information that we've gained, as opposed to when most people talk about retcons, they're talking about changing old information.
Right.
So I see what he's doing. He's just using a very broad definition of the word retcon. And his argument here, I guess, is that Deathclaws being able to stealth in Fallout 4 when you get to high levels is technically contradictory to what we know of old Fallout lore, because the Jackson chameleon that the Deathclaw is based on couldn't change colors.
Right.
But the chameleon Deathclaw can.
This is, I think...
So I guess what he's going to say is that Deathclaws, after 200 years, have started regaining, like they're re-evolving their ability to change colors.
Yeah, but is it explained?
Yeah, I think the example of Fallout 1 and 2 did it better, though, because Fallout 1, they were all just Deathclaws. They were just animals. And then we saw in Fallout 2, so I can't remember which lab it was or what vault it was, maybe, that they were experimenting on the Deathclaws and trying to increase their intelligence. So that is an entire facility, an entire group of people conducting an experiment, and they invented or they created... what was that companion name? I can't remember his name, but it's definitely a Deathclaw friend.
A Deathclaw that can has limited higher brain function and can mimic sounds like a parrot.
Well, this was he was pretty smart, actually. What's his name though? He was like a scholar, and
I forget.
Yeah, and that was the thing.
I know the character you mean though.
Yeah, he was a great fighter because he would throw off his cloak and he would just go rang crazy, and then he'd just put it back on. And
that's awesome.
He would talk. He would communicate. So it was like they obviously have a story behind this unique version of the thing we thought was only a certain way. So that is an example not of a retcon, but just a continuation of the idea of Deathclaws. Hey, this is an experiment. What if we kept experimenting to make it different? That would make more sense. Now, the idea that the chameleon coming back, the traits coming back, that's possible, but evolution terms, no. That would probably take a few thousand years for something to kick back in from a genetic change that drastic. So maybe...
Heck, It took the Krogan 1,000 years in Mass Effect to start overcoming the genophage on a species level, never mind an individual level.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe it wasn't 1,000 years, but maybe the Rachni Wars were 500 years. I can't remember exactly the timeline of Mass Effect, but
right. So evolution takes a while, especially if you're talking about camouflage, like your skin, your entire body, which has already been modified to be multiple times the size with probably different organs and musculature and all kinds of other things. You might have lost the trait you originally had. Then this is not like this is some understanding of my concept of splicing genes, because that's not a reality. Like, we can't scientifically explain how if I wanted to grow a limb, so I'd borrow the gene for regeneration from an iguana or something. Like, we don't know how to do that, if that's even a thing possible. So we can't just start guessing. We have to have an entire chapter or story about how this happened, or else it's just evolution can do anything. You throw a little bit of radiation, give it 100 years, and voila, you got flying death claws now because they adapted. And you're like, what?
yeah, just like give us a quest that reveals that the Institute did it.
Yeah, that's super technology. That's like way like weird, crazy science fiction stuff. That'll work fine.
They lazily use the Institute to cover up enough other things.
So some people in the comments were saying, like, when the radiation speed up the evolution possibility. Sorry, I can't say the word. But wouldn't that be possible for that to happen?
I mean, I guess theoretically, but like without seeing some, like, even if it's just death claws that can somewhat change color, but they're not great at it. You know, give us a little something. Just don't just throw it at us and say, "Oh no, this is fine." Radiation, science, it's okay.
All right, let's continue.
Recently, they found the Laotian rock rat living alive and well in 1996. Similarly, scientists thought that the Chicoan peccary was extinct. They only knew the animal by its fossils until they discovered the animal alive and well in 1975. Scientists weren't lying to us when they said that the Laotian rock rat and the Chicoan peccary were extinct. They simply hadn't found any evidence showing that they existed. To tie this back into Fallout 4, we only think that the chameleon can no longer change colors because we haven't observed it to do so. It could be that somewhere in its genetic code, the Deathclaw still retains the ability to change colors during extreme circumstances, which are so rare that we only ever find them happening in Fallout 4. We can explain the roaring issue in a similar way. Jackson chameleons are incredibly tiny creatures. As creatures get larger, they make more noise. They make more.
Oh, so it's not even going as far as maybe it adapted that ability over time. It's just maybe we never saw it before.
Well, we're talking about changing the entire gastrointestinal system and digestion and energy methods of this creature from an insect or whatever that thing is to a carnivore. So many things would have to have gone on with the systems of this insect's body to develop lungs and I don't know, a gullet, a stomach, something to digest stuff, and a digestive system. Like, this is not easy stuff. This is really complex. So you gotta throw us more science if you want to do crazy stuff. But anyway.
more noise when walking, they make more noise when breathing. It's quite possible that air can escape from a Deathclaw's stomach and pass some sort of fold or muscle that causes the Deathclaw to make something that sounds like a roar. That is, just because the Jackson chameleon does not have vocal cords and cannot make a noise, does not mean that a highly evolved Deathclaw, doused with the FEV, should not be able to make noise. Especially when we learn that the United States military mixed the Deathclaw with a bunch of other animal stock, not just the Jackson chameleon. With the genetic material from so many different creatures inside the Deathclaw, there's really no telling what this creature could do. In fact, the biggest issue that I have with the Deathclaw is that it lays eggs. Jackson chameleons don't lay eggs. Jackson chameleons carry their young for between 5 and 6 months and then give birth to between 5 or 10 live Jackson chameleons. They are not oviparous, they do not lay eggs, and yet in every Fallout game where the Deathclaws are depicted, including the very first one, the Deathclaws lay eggs. So this is one of those situations where we just gotta throw up our hands and say, we don't know what sort of animal genetic cocktail comprises the Deathclaws, we believe what we see. And we see a Deathclaw that can roar, lay eggs, and change colors. Another addition retcon that has been bugging a lot of people is the existence...
Yeah, but these aren't really good things unless you start adding stuff. Like, now they can change skin, or now they can change arm length. Now they can... Like, it just keeps going. Like, it's going to become ridiculous. It's like putty. It's like this this literary psycho or technobabble putty that just, the Deathclaw can do this. Now it can do that. Now it just throw in some radiation... Wait 100 years, now it could do, this is what happens when you have a degradation of lore. If you keep doing this, it's becoming a joke. You're not going to take it seriously, and that is when your immersion goes down the hole, because none of this makes sense anymore. You just have all these flavors of Deathclaw, all these flavors of power armor, all these flavors of ghouls I can get behind, because that makes a lot more sense. They're based off one factor. Radiation. That's it. And they're around and they're glowing, and sometimes they don't glow. There's not much you need to do with a human form or human figure and radiation. With Deathclaws, it's genetic manipulation, it's time, it's radiation, it's all kinds of stuff that my brain goes, no, too stupid, too dumb for me. I can't explain it. So I think changing the sexual abilities of an organism is a huge thing. Forget, eating and drinking and respiration, but replication, no, or reproduction, that's pretty big. So, anyway.
Yeah, and I think we just throw up our hands and say, this is what we got. Again, that's laziness. You just, then, why stop there? Where do we stop? If you can do anything, where do we stop? Like,
why care about anything?
Right. It would just be another lab. We took the genetics of the Deathclaw. We manufacture our own crazy, weird shit. You're like, why did you do that? Like, what other crazy organization is out there, and why would you want to do that? Like, it's compounding the zaniness of Vault-Tec and the Enclave, and you have to have a really good reason. That's why I really enjoyed Old World Blues, because Old World Blues not only explained rad scorpions and all these other weird technological things, it is the basis for all those things. Like, it explained the history of those things. So it went backward in time. Said, oh yeah, we're in this little bubble, and we just invented crazy shit at an alarming rate because we're super geniuses. Oh yeah, then we put our brains in jars, and now we're like this crazy, 40s sci-fi radio drama thing. So that worked well because they weren't trying to explain the future. They went backwards and explained or filled in the past. And that's where you have it's not a retcon, you're just going backward in time and saying this is how this all happened. And that got around a lot of problems. So you would have to then tell another story with another villain or another pseudo, I don't know, power-hungry, crazy group who's experimenting with deadly crazy people or organisms have unlimited resources and time, and they're not concerned about survival or some shit. They're just like, okay, we got to make another predator. You're like, why? That's dumb. Just dig a hole in the ground and survive as best you can in a vault or something. Why would you make a predator? That's ridiculous. Anyway.
Of the T-60 suit of power armor. Now, if you believe that this is a contradictory retcon, I'm not going to hold it against you. That's a perfectly rational position to hold. However, I don't think that we have to believe that it's a contradiction. We can easily explain the existence of the T-60 suit of power armor as an addition retcon. Now, the reason many say that the existence of the T-60 set of power armor is a contradiction is because in all of the Fallout games previously, the most advanced version of power armor before the war was the T-51B suit of power armor. Annoyingly, even in Fallout 4, we find a loading screen that says that the T-51 series of power armor was the pinnacle of mechanized protection before the Great War. So it seems that we've got a contradiction. Everywhere we turn, the T-51 is the most powerful suit of power armor, and yet we've got this T-60 suit of power armor, which is clearly superior. What gives? Well, the T-60 suit of power armor never saw combat. The United States military defended...
Wait a second, you're trying to tell me...
No. I'm sorry, no. It's either... The T-51 was either the pinnacle or it wasn't. There's no two ways about this. It was either the pinnacle or it was not the pinnacle.
Where is it?
Now,
I just want to know, his claim is it never saw combat. It's like, how do you know that? Where is it?
Well, he's going to, that's what he's going to say. It was experimental, or it was only in the planning stages, or there was a prototype or whatever. It's like, no. It was either the pinnacle or it wasn't. If the existence of the T-60 armor contradicts Fallout 4's loading screens, it is a contradiction. And you can easily get around this by saying it was made after the war by the Institute. You have an easy out for so many of these, creature and item details that contradict what happened, that contradict existing lore. You just say the Institute did it. You don't, none of this convoluted, it was built before the war, but it never went off the production line and got used in combat because the war happened or whatever. No, we got told that the 51 was the newest and the best. And then they made the XO1 after the war for the remnants of the U.S. government. So the T-60 contradicts the existing lore. And and we're at the point where Oxhorn is writing the game for the writers. And you know how much I hate that. Stop writing things for the writers.
It's like the writers were too lazy to be lazy. Because, they could have just said the Institute.
Well, this happens a lot with fans who try to rationalize either plot holes or, the existence of technology, or why people show up at certain times. How did they do this? How did this get there? Why does this thing exist? And I saw that all throughout Mass Effect 2, and it drove me nuts. And now here I am, still talking about this crap of headcanon, as it's affectionately called. So, yeah, it's annoying. It happens all the time, not just the retcons. It's just, there's a problem with the story.
Everywhere.
Yeah, they just, this is probably just, they did it in their spare time. It's like, really? They created a spaceship in their spare time. And it
happened off screen. You just didn't see it, okay?
So, fun times in fandom world. Explanations and excuses for everything.
Look, you just gotta read the book that hasn't been written yet.
Oh yeah, the next game, the next book will fix it. It's like, why would it even do that?
Wearing the T-51B suits of power armor. But when they came back home, they were then deployed domestically to keep the peace. During this time, the United States military had been working on the successor to the T-45 suit, which became known as the T-60. Because this was a recent innovation, no soldiers ever used it in combat against the Chinese. Instead, soldiers...
How does he know this? Is he just making this shit up? I have no idea.
Yes.
I don't know. And like, that's still a retcon, because then the T51, even if it was only ever used domestically, it's still better than the T60. So, or better than the T51. So the T51 is not the best power armor. So it's still a retcon.
All right.
Who were used as peacekeepers against their own citizens used the T-60 suit of power armor very briefly before the bombs dropped in 2077. This then raises the question, well, if that's the case, why didn't we hear about the T-60 in any of the previous Fallout games? And why did all of those games list the T-51B as the most advanced suit? I think this can be explained with how new the T-60 suit of power armor was. Much of what we learn about power armor comes from Vault-Tec. A lot of the records that were kept by Vault-Tec, and many of these records were old. If the United States military had just released a brand new line of power armor, it may be so new that Vault-Tec had not been able to update their records, which talked about pre-war technology, before the bombs dropped. Well, then why don't we find any T-60 power armor outside of the Commonwealth? Well, we learned from the terminal entries at Fort Strong that the Boston area was used to research and develop both the Fat Man and the T-51 suit of power armor. If a research facility like Fort Strong in Boston, Massachusetts was used to research the T-51 suit of power armor, it's likely that this same facility was used to research and develop.
Okay, it's likely, it's possible. These things could have. It's like,
Yeah, you're writing the game for the writer.
So
That's the problem here.
He's not actually talking about the lore itself. He's trying to band-aid the holes in the story.
Yeah, we have no indication that it's Vault-Tec. Like the loading screen tips are supposed to be Vault-Tec. We have no indication that this is a biased in-universe narrator telling us this information in the loading screens. Especially because there's game mechanics in the loading screen.
It's reminiscent of Skyrim, and I think they just borrowed that loading screen.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So
yes, they did.
There's no narrator. There's no voice saying the words on the screen are biased.
Right.
And if
it was supposed to be Vault-Tec telling us that stuff, then it needs to be written in a tone as if it was being written by Vault-Tec, either as Vault-Tec advertising to the citizenry, which would be more effective than just putting bland tips. You would actually add some flavor to the loading screens, the kind that I talked about with the old games that you can't get by looking at stuff instead of having to click to interact with everything. Or you write it like it's Vault-Tec internal memos. You need to write it from the voice of being Vault-Tec. You don't write it as if it's omniscient information being told to the player. That's the problem.
Yeah, see, that's the kind of personalization and character of from Fallout 2 and New Vegas. There's a lot of, there's memos as well. That's kind of different, but there's this sort of personalized message to logos, like Nuka-Cola. It's like, oh yeah, I see that. I know the color. That's what I think. The font, everything just sort of, okay, I get that. I know what they're trying to do. And they know it's not the best drink in the world because it's radioactive. But, it's like, it's good for you. It's the best thing out there as opposed to water because the water's bad for you. So, this kind of argument with drinking alcohol is better for you back in the day because it was cleaner than water because they couldn't get free. Certain colonies or certain villages could not get clean water, so distilling your own alcohol was the best choice because it killed bacteria. So it's that sort of mentality with this sort of 50s McCarthyism aesthetic. And everything's dirty and everything's disgusting and it's probably going to kill you anyway. But this stuff, at least you're not going to be completely dead. You're just going to be slightly irradiated. So I like that.
But it gives you power, right? It gives you a perk.
It can, yeah, based on game mechanics. But originally, I don't think it really did. I don't think, unless there's a perk I forgot.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I never went the weird. There's all these weird perks like cannibalism and healing after being irradiated. I never really used those. So I guess there's perks to it. There has to be bonuses, or else people wouldn't play that way. But that's the great thing. You could play in so many different manner, whether it's ranged weapons or melee or unarmed. It's such a great dynamic for this environment, for an open world concept. So I just missed that aesthetic, and I really wish they could remake New Vegas, because if there's any game out there that needs the treatment and the polish, because the bugs are still,
aren't fans doing that?
Well, they're remaking
Isn't there that big Fallout 4 New Vegas mod being worked on?
They're doing that, which is cool, but it's not official. I want like to hire those guys and say, okay, we're going to do New Vegas over again. Remasters, for whatever reason, are popular. We're going to do the good game that deserves it, which is New Vegas. That's what I want to see.
No, we got to do 3 again.
Fallout 3? You want to see? Well, you know what? That might
They're going to redo that.
That might work too. I think that might work as well. Yeah. It's a mixed bag. Fallout 3 is good and bad in certain ways. So.
Oh yeah, certainly. Yeah.
But New Vegas is the gem. I think everyone wants to see that redone.
Mm-hmm.
Or would pay money.
I mean, honestly, if you could get Fallout 3 redone, but by the New Vegas writers to like touch up the lore issues and kind of give a little bit more life to everything, I could get behind that if it was remade. Even if you wanted to keep it set in the capital. Like, keep it set on the East Coast, keep the setting the same, maybe even keep the plot the same, even though I think I've said this before the last time with the What Culture video, is Bethesda's main plots often rely on go find the person. So
yeah,
well, I have nothing against quest stories, so I don't mind if you're looking for something or someone. I actually enjoy because the plot lines of 3 and 4 were same idea: find your son, find your father, or find your father, find your son. It ends up being very similar. So I don't mind that. It's how it's set up, and they got the right talent. It just didn't gel well. And I did enjoy the reveal in Fallout 4. I thought the Institute was great. I thought that the railroad was pretty good. Like, all these setups were good. It just didn't have enough connective tissue.
I wish there was more out of that, specifically with 4. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
really interesting.
4 was really cool. Like, I never watched, what was that, Westworld show where they had all these artificial people and whatnot. I was like, that's what it looks like. It felt like a Westworld scenario, but a bit more smart, a bit more slick. And I liked where they were going. And I just wanted more, even though there were plenty of quests for each. I think they could have developed it a lot better. So, but the focus was combat. So there's all these set pieces of action. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And the problem with a lot of those, the problem with Bethesda's plot specifically is even if it's find the person, they always they put so much urgency to their main plots. And I know like Fallout 1 had an urgent, like a ticking clock. But like,
what was one's plot? It was get the microchip, right?
Yeah, but one's plot, the ticking clock, was actually a ticking clock. Like, you would lose.
Yeah, you could actually fail, right?
Yeah, in a way that you don't with Bethesda, where they just make it feel urgent and then it's not actually urgent.
You start doing everything around like this, all the side quests. That takes like for days or a year.
Yeah, so I think you can touch that up.
It would be nice. It would be nice to see it, not only a remaster, but a rewrite of Fallout 3. I agree. Anyway.
develop the Hush T60 suit of power armor, which may mean that the T60 suit of power armor had a limited release only to soldiers in the Boston area keeping the peace in Boston, which would explain why we see United States military soldiers wearing T60 suits of power armor outside of Vault 111 at the beginning of the game. This may also help explain how the Brotherhood of Steel got their hands on the T60. The only ones in the game who use the T60 are the Brotherhood of Steel. Everyone else uses T45, T51, or Raider. Why is that? Well, there's a whole lot of T51, T45, and Raider power armor out there. Up until this point, the T60 was not even known to have existed. My bet is that the Brotherhood of Steel came swooping in on the Pridwin, and one of the places they raided was either Fort Strong, where they got the T60 suits of power armor that they used for the Brotherhood, or an unmentioned storage facility in the general area, possibly attached to Fort Strong, where T60 was stored. We learned from Paladin Dance that the Brotherhood now has the ability to manufacture T60 power armor, and they could probably only do that if they actually captured the original facility that manufactured the T60 power armor. So here's another example, I think, where we don't necessarily have to believe that this is a contradiction. It simply
After like 5 minutes of explanation, thanks. That's great.
Be an addition retcon. The developers of Fallout 4 are fleshing out the story of power armor. They're telling us things that we just didn't know before. All of the pre-war information that told us that the T51 suit of power armor was the most advanced is all still accurate. It's all still correct, simply because they didn't know that the T...
Except, it's, again, like I said, we don't have any indication that it's pre-war knowledge. We don't have any indication that it's Vault Tech telling us all this. Like, as far as we can tell, this is all accurate.
I don't think deductions are arguments. This is a strange way of trying to wipe Bethesda's ass when it's not your job.
I'm still waiting for like why it's not a big deal. He's just trying to, give like half-ass explanation.
Yeah, it's this strange rationalization with, well, because it's scarce, therefore there's not much of it. It's like, what? No shit. That's not. It's rare, therefore there's only one person. Like, yeah, so. Anyway, the Mechanist, $1.11. Thanks again. I would like to see an updated Fallout 3 in New Vegas. Fix both of their problems. Oh, there's so many problems. Like give hardcore mode to 3. And random encounters to New Vegas. Okay. But absolutely don't touch the writing of either game or we get a woke product. I think they should also update the writing in New Vegas just to clean it up. And there's lots of, like Joshua Graham, as awesome as he is, he's still just a talking head. All his cool stuff happens while he's in the field shooting stuff and talking to you.
I think that Joshua Sawyer, for as obnoxious as he can be on Twitter,
yeah,
and Chris Avallone, who I assume is left wing, but who I have not seen be obnoxious on Twitter.
Right.
I think that for as bad as they can be, they are talented enough writers that if they were to rewrite some of the issues, John Gonzalez, that's his name.
That's the main writer.
The other guy who I mentioned before.
Yeah.
If they were to rewrite the issues, that we would not get like modern appeal to modern audiences garbage. So
okay, yeah. Like
I'm not worried about, like, I think they could do rewrites and we would not lose anything. Like, it might be a little ham-handed. There might be some Trump references because the Fallout 2 Enclave was all about how much the writers didn't like Newt Gingrich. And Ronald Reagan. It was all about how bad neocons were, which, to be fair, neocons are pretty terrible. But I think they're good enough that they could rewrite those games well without us.
Yeah, what I mean
ending
is
up crap.
The plot lines and all the outcomes and possibilities and branching paths. That's all fine. I want to see an update to the voice acting. So, you can get the same voice actors. I don't really care.
Hire more voice actors for 3.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's the other issue. That's like the generic NPC voices. But I mean, like the storyline with Boone. Like everyone loves Boone. I'm like, he's fine, but he's so stiff. And there's
really? Wow.
It's just so plain until you finally get to learn about his past. But even that's pretty plain. Like I want to see some actual drama. I want to hear it. And if we don't have that voice acting, a lot of the writing is kind of left on the ground. And that's the reason why like Vampire the Masquerade was so good, Bloodlines, because they got really good voice talent, and not just the talent, but the director, the sound director doing the voice recordings got what they wanted, because in their head they're playing the game. They go, okay, say your line, let me hear it, and that is where all the emotion, the talent, the skill comes from. Like Josh Sawyer and Chris, those guys are also good game designers. So they're thinking in terms of mechanics as well. They're not just writers. And now if you say, okay, but the mechanics are fine, we don't have to worry about that. Just focus on the writing. Just focus on getting those actors to do their job exactly what you want them to do. And maybe they'll have a new engine. Maybe they have a better engine. They can get those goddamn cutscenes to work properly. And none of that crazy zeroing in on someone's face and zooming in like it's a projector or something, or a telescope.
Oh, you don't like that?
They
brought it back for Outer Worlds.
It's a bit much. It's like, okay, you want to do a scene. A scene is not, I'm going to shoot your face straight at my head at the camera. I want like have a little off to the side. Give me some angle there. Like at least in KOTOR, like that was nothing special. It was just a shot from the side, and the other guy talked, and it shot from the side again, and then you were a voiceless man or woman, and just showed your facial expression and your idle animation. That was fine. That was better. I don't need this zoom in like portrait shot.
Could you imagine if 4 had that when you finally find your son? It just starts zooming in.
Yeah, well, that's their 4 was their weird attempt to try to mimic BioWare, which was weird. I don't know what they were trying to do exactly, what the goal was, but it was at least an attempt to not do the crazy zoom in. So you really have to do that connection, which is...
Oh, that reminds me. Did you ever like having a voice protagonist?
It depends.
Me personally, it just kills the imagination a little bit for me whenever
It really depends how it's done. If I look at Deus Ex from Eidos, that was done very well. So they got a good voice actor who knew the role, very good dialogue system, which had multiple branches and power-ups and upgrades and things you could do to steer it differently, or at least give the illusion of steering it differently. And it worked. Yeah. It worked well. The same with Alpha Protocol. That's the best example I can give of branching paths. But that was because the focus of the narrative was branching paths, not just in dialogue. So...
Man, talk about a game that needs a re-release and a sequel.
That is probably the one I want the most that I know I'm not going to get because of Sega. So...
Oh...
Yeah, it needs to be updated. It got taken down on Steam.
I know it had its issues.
Oh, yeah.
It was buggy. It wasn't like there was a lot of cut stuff. But, man, what a good game.
A lot of people didn't like the shooting mechanics because they were dice rolls for hit and on damage. I didn't mind it too much, but I guess the other weapons, which were not very accurate, would probably suck like ass. So, but great game design in those concepts, just really bad execution, I guess. So,
yeah, and talk about a role-playing game where you actually can play a role. Holy cow!
Yeah, that is the best definition. The dialogue stance system, or whatever they called it, the DSS. Where it was, you are a spy. Here are our flavors of spy. There you go. Have fun. And
the 3 JBs, as they called it in the promotional material.
It's great.
I love that
Jack
because
Bauer.
it really is. Jack Bauer, Jason Bourne, and James Bond.
Yeah.
Was how they described it, because you had the aggressive, which was your Jack Bauer, the professional, which was your
James Bond,
your Jason Bourne, and then your suave, which was your James Bond.
The Roger Moore James Bond.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, Pierce Brosnan James Bond is pretty suave.
Well, goofy. I would say there was a goofy sort of style to some of this of Michael Thornton's response.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Guys, if you've not played Alpha Protocol, or you can't, it's really tough to get a hold of it. But holy crap.
Yeah, if you can find a way to play Alpha Protocol, play Alpha Protocol. The gameplay is a little jank, but the role-playing is unparalleled in any modern game. Like, it is probably the best actual role-playing game of, like, the last, 15 years. Maybe Dragon Age. Dragon Age is
Inquisition?
up there. Oh, yes, Inquisition, the best one. We all know.
I was about to make a comment, because I have so many things to talk about with Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous, that I'm seeing flavors of Inquisition and Fallout and like other games I've played, and Righteous just does all of them in some version. And I'm like, wow, they're doing this plot, or they're doing that mechanic, or they're doing this stat check, which really works. And I love it. And you saw that even from the previous game as well. Like, in Inquisition, you have the throne scenarios where you sit in your throne and someone brings something up to you and you vote on what to do with it. That's like 40 to 50% of what you do in Pathfinder Kingmaker, the first game. And it's just like, you don't realize that until you play through the game once. You're like, holy shit, I did all these choices. I made all these edicts and did all these things. So there's better games out there for the mechanics involved, and you just have to find them. And I'm glad that there's independent studios doing that for stuff we want. But
I've owned Kingmaker for a while now. I should play it.
The game, the video game,
Pathfinder Kingmaker. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I've owned it for a while, and I have not played it yet.
It is.
I think I even have it installed. Yeah.
It is going to suck up. Like I just ran through. Ran through Wrath of the Righteous, and I got to go back and replay it because there's 10 different mythic paths. 10. It's nuts. There's so much replay value. And with Kingmaker, the RPG, like the base D&D rules for classes are nuts. There's dual classing. There's no dual class. You can class as anything and then just jump to another class. It's crazy. So, great RPGing I've been having this past few weeks, or past week at least.
Now I'm reinstalling Alpha Protocol since we talked about it.
I wish I could reinstall it. Oh.
Nice.
I've had it through Steam for years. I mean, I bought that game on release. That's how long it's been. That's how many times I've played it.
Anyway.
I even had a game where I decided to go, I put no points into stealth. So I basically just ran around every mission with an assault rifle, gunning everyone down. It was terrific.
Yeah, it was always assault rifle and pistol. That was my two.
Everyone was dead by the end of the game.
Nice.
I think literally everyone. I think I got the achievement for shooting everyone you can shoot.
There's an achievement for that?
Yes, there is an achievement for killing everyone it's possible to kill in the game. Not like nameless NPCs, but like all the named characters.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember
for
getting
killing
a golden
all
gun.
of them.
I got
one of them is extremely difficult. Do you remember? Conrad Marburg?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, it's super hard to kill him because it's like very specific scenarios.
That was in the museum.
Yeah, there is a way later on in the end game when you're chasing down Alan Parker. you can make Marburg replace him if you found out. You have to have a high reputation with him, and you have to have found out that Madison is his daughter. And then you can tell him that Conrad Marburg killed his daughter, or tried to. I don't remember if it works if she's still alive. And if you do that, then Marburg replaces Alan Parker as a boss fight. But there's a way to kill him in the museum where you have to have spent the majority of the game up to that point being suave, and then you have to be suave the whole conversation, and then you can taunt him into staying and fighting you to the death. And you have to do that in order to get the kill everyone ending. And it's really funny because in the end game, I don't know if you remember, there's a moment where if your final boss fight, which if you've done it properly, your final boss fight is I forget the guy's name. Not your boss, not the black guy.
Not
the
Wayland?
guy. No, it's the guy who's been interrogating you the whole game.
Yeah, Wayland.
Is that Wayland? Yeah. Where he replaces Westridge. Oh, no. You kill Westridge, and then when you're talking to Wayland at the end, he's offering you a job.
Oh, sorry, Leyland. It's not Wayland, Leyland.
Oh, yeah. Wayland is Alien. If you're he's offering you a job, and you can say to him, why do I need you? And then Michael starts listing off all of his friends around the world, as to why he doesn't need Leyland, because he basically runs the world already. So in the kill everything playthrough, when I killed Leyland, Michael is like, why would I need you? Think about all of the other allies I have, and he listed like 2 names because everyone else was dead. He's like, why would I need you? I've got all this other help. Stephen Heck, Z, and that's it. And it sounded so pathetic.
Yeah, those 2 people you don't exactly want on your side too often. They're a bit weird. Anyway, back to the video.
60 exists. T60 was so new. Now, an example of an alteration retcon, a retcon that actually contradicts the lore, is the way power armor is used. In previous versions of Fallout 4, you actually had to get power armor training from the Brotherhood of Steel, for example, before you could wear it. In Fallout 4, they completely changed the mechanics of power armor. In previous games, you did not need a power armor frame. They were not powered by fusion cores. Both of those are completely new inventions.
Okay, now, they were powered by fusion cores, but, like, the information was that fusion cores could run for ever. And there was no, like, issue.
Right.
And the other thing is, like, he picked the stupidest thing to use as an example of a contradiction when we actually have a reason in story why your character, if you are the male sole survivor, can use power armor, because he's a soldier. Like, we see him using power armor in the opening narration.
Wait, he's a soldier?
Yes.
Yeah.
His opening narration is him prepping a speech to give at the Veterans Hall.
Oh, it's the same. Yeah. It's been a while.
For the male sole survivor, it works. For the female sole survivor, not so much, because she was a lawyer, so who knows where she got power armor training at law school. Which is why, by the way, the sole survivor is a synth fan theory doesn't really work, because Dima asks you, what's your first memory? And the answer you have to give him somehow relates to the intro sequence. Like, you either tell him, like, oh, it was the day the bombs fell, or it was running to the vault, or whatever. Except he's giving a speech at the Veterans Hall about things that happened to him in the past. which means he remembers things that happened to him before that first opening of the game. So his first memory is not the opening of the game.
Right. The explanation for lore regarding how to use power armor was, I think it was, you have to think of moving your arms and legs, not physically doing it, but mentally doing it.
Something like that.
Yeah, and it takes at least a few, like 24 hours or whatever the time lapse was when you learn it. Basically a sleeping period. So that is not, impossible to get around, but you still have to go through the steps of how do you know this. And again, we have to say, well, gaming trumps lore, or gameplay mechanics trump lore. So that's why I say, yeah, it's a reinvention of Fallout again for this environment. So it's still a retcon, though. It's like you can't get around that. The explanation is just mechanical. Because the medium is gaming, that's it. And that's not good enough. So if they said this is a different version of power armor, and it works differently than the models we had from wherever, great. This is different. It's a new thing, and it's I don't know, Boston version of power armor. I don't care. Call it whatever you like, but don't call it the same thing.
Isn't there people that like to modify these power armors? They're like a gang, I think, in Fallout 4.
Well, there's the what the hell's the name of that chop shop? What the hell they're called?
Yeah, that was a chop shop.
The Atom Cats, wasn't that it?
Something like that. They had other groups as well, but yeah, I think
Who
that
had
was
suits of T60 power armor.
Yeah,
The secret experimental power armor.
yeah, it came out of nowhere. So that no one has. Yeah, so again, interesting ideas, but don't use you should not have used the same lore. And this is why we looked at Bethesda saying you shouldn't have done it this way. You should have hired someone else just to get the lore right. And you could have invented your own power armor, your own weapons, and done it that way.
Yeah.
And no one would have a problem. Be like, oh yeah, this is new. It's a new part of the world, it's a new part of Fallout. And you'll be like, yep, totally cool. But they just copy and paste the names.
Boston.
Yeah.
Once again, you had a ready-made explanation. The Institute.
Yep.
Use the Institute as your catch-all. I know it's lazy, but you gave yourself an out, and you're not taking it.
They're too lazy to do that.
It would make lots of sense because the Institute was so influential in the region and so embedded and literally in the ground that it would make logical sense that they were the influence and the cause of many things in the area, like technology, even the old technology. This is probably like if it was the Institute, it's probably like some weird, I don't know, HR team saying, okay, we gotta, or PR team, we gotta, slowly adapt people to the high end stuff before we introduce them to whatever acclamation when we bring them over. Like there's some weird social experiment that they were doing with weapons or whatever. I would like to have, that's what I saw the Insta. I went, holy crap, this is incredible. And I want more stories. I want more elements that connect with the world. So I wish I saw, it's kind of like watching a show like Farscape. Like, wow, this is so far out there and crazy. I want to see more. And we only got the 2.5 years or whatever it was. And I want to see more. The Institute is the same idea. It's like, I want more. There's so much to play with here. Because we're talking about this crazy hidden laboratory of everything. And they could have based Fallout 4 offshoot game off it. The Institute. That would have been a game. But we're not going to get that. So, anyway.
This does contradict the previous games. There's no explaining it, there's no getting around it, but we can understand it. You see, fiction authors and comic book authors and video game makers will sometimes use an alteration retcon to improve upon something that they felt was limiting them. Each new Fallout game has got to be different. It can't just be a recycling of everything we found in the previous game.
Why? Why can't you tell the same? old story, which they seem to do in 4, which they did in 3. Same plot. Or are you arguing mechanics? If you're arguing mechanics, then that's great. Why do you have to screw up
But
lore?
it's in reverse. It's different.
Yeah, but that's fine. I don't care if it's the same old story because I'm not like some weirdo that it has to be different. It's like, no, every story has pretty much been told. But if you want new game mechanics, new graphics, new this and that, and they did, Sarsaparilla was a new drink in New Vegas. That's fine. Who cares? Yeah, great. Have 3 new drinks. I don't care. But mechanics, don't destroy what came before. That's all you got to do. You would not reinvent the lightsaber. You don't do that. That would be detrimental. Everyone would look at you like you're crazy. That's why we laugh at Clone Wars or some episodes of Clone Wars because they turn the lightsaber into a helicopter blade. And it's stupid. It's retarded. No, that's dumb. Dark the Jedi or Sith don't do that. That's retarded. No one flies around with a lightsaber.
And the thing is, you can change the game mechanics to improve upon things without contradicting your existing material.
And that's the problem with Fallout 4. It feels too much combat heavy. They focused on the shooting mechanics too much and not enough on the world. And the world is beautiful. Fallout 4 looks great. The architecture and the layout. Yeah, there's some problems with figuring out where the hell to go. But it looks great. So the problem is not level design so much or color palette. And you can do whatever color palette you like. You're in a different city. You're a different part of the world. That's fine. It's don't destroy what came before. Build upon it. Always, always build upon it. Never break it apart. Or never just, slap a Band-Aid over and say, now it's blue. Like, no. That's dumb. And I wish it was only a paint job problem, but it's much worse.
It's going to get... The creators also need to feel like they're free to come up with new ideas. I don't know about you, but I prefer the way Power Armor works.
They need to feel like they're free to come up with it. He's doing the voice. Can you please talk like a normal person when you make a YouTube video?
I don't know any author who goes, I don't feel like I'm writing well because I don't feel free enough to express myself.
I don't feel like I'm free to do what I want because I
don't know.
because I'm following my old lore.
That is not a problem to writers, honestly. Writers will figure out how to be creative on ideas, how to compose ideas. This is not... The human imagination is a bit more powerful than limiting yourself to a template or a lore funnel. It's not that difficult to work within the funnel.
Yeah, just as long as you have passion for the Fallout lore.
Well,
How limited are you? Really?
Yeah, you would sit in the writer's room or you sit with all the creative types. You say, okay, I want to do this. It's like, I know it's different. I know it's a different flavor of ghoul or a different flavor of Cazador or whatever, but I want to do that. And they would be like, okay, does that break anything? No. All right, maybe try it out. See what modeling can do and how the game mechanics could work and the sound. Maybe it'll look good. Maybe it'll sound good. We don't know. And that's that. Just try things. And I don't think there's any limitation on the creators, either the writers or the sound guys, to say no. There's no way you could have giant freaking Liberty Prime stomping around and killing commie scum. No, we can't. Of course they got away with it. It's a giant transformer or a giant, I don't know, metal machine that crushes. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. But it makes sense within the world of Fallout. That's what you would see.
We even go to space in Fallout 3.
Oh. Some ideas work, some ideas don't. Anyway.
In Fallout, I love the fact that Bethesda has conceptualized power armor as being more like a vehicle instead of just a suit of armor. It's
Okay,
way
but I don't
more
care if
fun
you
to
like it or not,
use.
Oxhorn.
It's
Yeah, it's
beautiful.
subjective
It
thing.
fits in with the world. It's got amazing style. This is an example of a retcon that I really like. I'm glad they did it.
I don't
it does
care if you
make
like it or not.
inconsistent with previous Fallout games, but I personally think that it's worth it.
So this is the argument, same with expectations. Expectations are just what you expect from the previous installment to be in the next installment, whether that's content or characters or plots. It really doesn't matter. You're expecting things to be similar, consistent, the same, whatever. Because the version that he got was not consistent, it happens to be a better flavor of ice cream or a different color of car. He's like, well, I like red. Red is good. I like cherry ice cream better than lemon. Therefore, it's better.
Yeah, that's his argument. I just like it.
I
Okay, good for you.
I like it better when compared. It's like, yeah, maybe I do. I think the shooting in Fallout 4 is better too. Doesn't mean it's a better game. It's very.
I mean, before the update, I was getting annoyed because you couldn't find a lot of fusion cores, and it was just pointless to even use the power armor for me personally, because it's just like.
Yeah, but that's part of the game. The rest of the game is just what's his face, Preston, always asking you to go places. It's like, dude, this is not fun. That's what it boils down
I don't
to.
understand. I need your help.
That's all the game is after. Like
I'll
half
mark
the
it
game.
on your map.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all it is. It's like, dude, can you shut the go away? I don't want.
You can't kill him. That's what pisses me off.
Yeah.
I don't even want this guy, and he's staying over at my settlement. Like,
I just wish he
why?
was satisfied. Like, can you be Preston? Are you ever satisfied with what I've been doing? Like, I've pretty much cleansed the wasteland. What do you want from me?
look, people need our help. Okay, that's the problem. I don't know how he knows this, how he gets this information,
It's random people
but he gets it.
in a hut.
Yeah.
need clean water. It's like, I got to take care of them. They can't figure that out. Anyway.
Why can't you do it, Preston?
Yeah. Here's Ultimate Fatty. Thanks for the 5. Fallout 4's Institute couldn't hold a candle to Big Mountain from New Vegas. Well, that's okay. I agree. Big M, or the Big M, or that whole DLC to me is the best DLC ever. Out of all the games I've played, all the DLCs I've played, it is fantastic. The voice acting,
really?
storytelling, the gameplay mechanics, the crazy pulpy nature of it all. It was fun as hell and very well put together. The Institute is, I wouldn't say further, it's more sophisticated and less crazy, because that was like pulpy, silly technology. The Institute is like future tech, like sophisticated future tech. So it's like comparing the Borg to like the Borg in Voyager. That the Borg adapted to the mobile emitter and created that super Borg or whatever, the futuristic Borg. Like, it's comparing those two things. They're still the Borg. One's way more advanced. So there's so many stories to tell there that could have worked very, very well. But anyway, I'm repeating myself.
Now, here are some things that are not retcons, and they're not really contradictions. Finding pipe pistols in pre-war safes. We know that pipe pistols are created by wastelanders and scavengers from bits and pieces of wood and metal that they happen to find around the wasteland. These are improvised weapons. What are they doing in a pre-war safe? This isn't part of the lore. This isn't a retcon or a contradiction. It's a...
That is definitely part of the lore. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's absolutely a contradiction. Yeah, he's about to say it's a gameplay mechanic because the loot is randomized. Take pipe pistols off of the loot randomization list for pre-war safes.
Yeah.
You could do that with a competent programmer, which I know limits Bethesda, but...
It's the same problem with a lot of the level design, even New Vegas, where there's no way a building that could have withstood a nuclear bomb would still have decrepit, objects in it, like of that nature. Like, in order for wood to be destroyed to that capacity would take hundreds, if not thousands of years. That we saw, like, we're talking like books are just completely annihilated. It's like, okay, there's plenty of old libraries we still have that no one's touched in probably decades. They're doing fine. They have a thick layer of dust on them, maybe, but they're books. They're pretty thick and sticky after a certain point in time. They're not going to start
thick and sticky.
Yeah, no, books are pretty well preserved these days, especially when our printing materials. So, newspapers, yes, they would break down because they're not well composed of certain materials that would be against oxidation. But you see these destroyed buildings. The structure's fine, and like parts of the walls are torn apart. You're like, how did that wall get busted up? Was there a fight?
Yeah.
Did someone smash concrete? Like, how? Like, it doesn't make any sense that stuff like that would happen. So that's the kind of problem. Like we can blame the bombs, but you can only blame them so far. There's all this stuff where, like, how did this happen to every building? How is there rubble in the middle of nowhere just thrown about the wasteland? Like, that makes no sense. There's a lot of design choices in Fallout. I go, that does not make any sense. No one went around throwing broken boulders everywhere. So, yeah.
Maybe the behemoth? I don't know.
Yeah, no, there's things with the level design.
Why does he have a huge fire hydrant?
Well, there's some stuff I can forgive, like the railroads or the roads in New Vegas. Like, the roads are so ridiculously steep or sharp. Like, no one would ever have that. But because, they were pressed on time to make this thing, and they wanted to show that a road goes somewhere, they didn't want to flatten the road or whatever. It's like, okay, fine. I can get behind that. And it doesn't really matter. I'm sure there's other things that happen to cause the roads to degrade and look weird. Asphalt can churn and break down very easily. So it's when they look pristine, you're like, it doesn't, no. That would have been broken down a long time ago. But anyway, these are nitpicks. These are visual problems I have. But keeping things that don't exist in the safe that no one opened for 200 years, yeah, that's a problem.
Game-ition. You see, every single container, especially locked containers, is going to randomly generate loot from a loot table. Now, it would probably be a Herculean undertaking to mark every single container in the game as either pre-war and post-war.
No, are you joking? Do you know anything about programming? What is this guy talking about?
Nope.
It's called object-oriented programming. You create objects and you give them parameters. And in those parameters are a list of attributes, like the number 1 or 2 or 3. And you ascribe that to another table that's associated with what those numbers mean. And then you use simple flag check on instance of object, done. Is it 1 or 2 or 3? If it is 1, don't spawn this. Here's another list of tables that we don't use other objects to be created in. This is basic stuff. And you don't even need a visual component. This is purely logical. There's no asset necessary. You can play this on a text game. I can make a series of 2D tables that would explain this and show how it works. Mm-hmm. But anyway, not important.
And then have a pre- or post-war loot table for those particular containers. So Bethesda came up with one loot table for containers that is altered by your stats, your level, and your perks. And on that loot table, you can find any gun in the game, including the pipe guns, which sadly makes it possible for you to find a gun.
Yeah, maybe. I think they would be sensitive enough to talk about.
I think a caring developer could have taken the time to do that. Yeah. They were under no time pressure to make Fallout 4.
It's something as simple as I'm trying to think of like the chest in Chrono Trigger that you can't open until you get certain parts of the games. Then it's like, oh yeah, what about all those black chests, those big black boxes? Like, what the hell were those? And now we can open them. Like, it's something big as simple as it's something as simple as that. That why is there this mysterious black box no one knows what's in it? And no one can open it. And then later on in the story, you figure out how to open them. And you're like, oh, now you have to remember where all those things were, and you want to go back. And it adds that's why one of those beautiful game design moments of Chrono Trigger is replay value and going back to environments just to find that clue or something. And then you combine that with a time mechanic. It's brilliant. It's absolutely simple and brilliant for them to come up with that design choice. But you can do that with Fallout. You have special looking boxes. And they have those already. They have military caches. They have military boxes for ammo and big weapons and what have you. Same idea. And you'll be, oh, there's a red box from Vault-Tec or whatever. There's a red box or a blue box from the Enclave. Fine, go for it. I'd love to see that.
And it should not be there. Of course, this could always be fixed by an energetic modder. I'm sure it's possible for a modder to split the loot table and to go through every single container in the entire game, in every building, and then mark each one as a pre-war or post-war container, and then feed those containers the appropriate loot lists. If the lore is that important, someone will make the mod, I tell you that. But that...
No. You don't laugh at this.
Oh my god.
Why are you laughing at the idea of caring about the details of the game you're making?
If he actually knew how to do it, I'd give him you could laugh at it because, it's so easy or it's so hard, then fine. But he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Exactly, yep.
Like if he made a mod about, I don't know, spawning stuff and how easy it is to spawn and that you don't want to spawn too much, it'll cause memory leaks and you'll overpower certain computers. You're like, okay, yeah, the guy knows limitations of how to make a mod. Then you can laugh about it. Like, yeah, I can do this. I can do this in my spare time. It could take me 2 months. I'll figure it out. But I don't care. It's like, okay, great. Other people who say, yeah, this is a problem. And if it was such a big I don't know how many. I haven't seen the list of retcons in Fallout 4 because I just don't care. I played it once and I played it twice and that was enough for me. I was like, it's fine. It's good. But, I don't want to go back to it ever again. It's one of those games. It's a good game. Just don't care. New Vegas once a year at least. So
that's a that's not really a lore issue. The big retcon that I think is unnecessary and that I don't understand is the one about Jet. We know where Jet comes from. Jet plays an important role in Fallout 2. In Fallout 2, we meet the inventor of Jet, a young boy genius named Myrnon. What makes this even more frustrating is we know the lengths that Myrnon...
Myrnon? Myron. Myron.
Oh, okay. I was confused for a minute. Like, is he talking about somebody else?
Myrnon? Where did the N come from? It's Myron, baby. Myron. That's the thing. That's the joke. What? Oh, God. This is funny. The guy... I gotta ask, did the guy even play Fallout 2?
No. Why do you think he doesn't give a shit about lore?
This is sad. I clearly remember that punk's face when you're about to abandon him and he freaks the hell out because he's scared because he was treated like a princess and he realizes you're his last guy to help him out. Oh, jeez. Anyway.
Went to invent Jet. He started with growing mushrooms because the nearby land at that time was so irradiated that it couldn't grow anything else. He learned that hallucinogens were plentiful in Brahmin dung. This is because before the war, big meat companies had experimented with a cheap protein extract for growing food. However, they couldn't sell this for human consumption because it reacted with bacteria, so they fed it to cattle. These cattle that were fed the cheap protein extract mutated and evolved to become Brahmin. These Brahmin inherited a mutation from their ancestors who were fed this cheap protein extract that caused their feces to give humans intoxicating hallucinations. Knowing this, he mixed the intoxicating fumes of the Brahmin dung with the mushrooms he had grown, lysergic acid, dithylamide, psilocybin, and THC. The resulting concoction was Jet. You see, we know a whole lot about how Jet was invented. And yet in Fallout 4, we find terminal entries in the Vault-Tec corporate headquarters talking about sending a shipment of Jet to Vault 95. It's not that we just found Jet in Vault 95. That could easily be explained away by just saying it's game mechanics, like I talked about earlier. But no, this is an actual terminal entry that says Jet. We, Vault-Tec, shipped Jet to Vault 95. That should not be able to exist. That is a legitimate, contradictory alteration retcon. Now, this can be explained away if you really, really, really want to.
Okay, here we go.
It really can.
No, it can't. This guy's... He's going to invent some bullshit.
Yeah, let's just make up... exactly.
Like-
Let's just make it all up.
Ugh.
For example, simply say that if anyone was going to discover the fact that Brahmin feces had intoxicating qualities, it would probably be a pre-war institution like MedTech that had the money and...
Are you fucking kidding me right now?
Did
Where
Brahmin
are you
exist
getting-
pre-war?
No.
Aren't Brahmin a post-war mutation of cows?
He is seriously trying to rationalize all of these ifs. If they knew of Brahmin, or if they knew of this, and if they knew of this drug, and that drug, and that drug, and that, and some scientists randomly put them together pre-war. Are you joke? I can't believe this.
I think he's trying to fool himself.
What is wrong with you, sir?
Everything.
This is not how logic works. This is not how probability works. Once you start counting the variables and the succession of ifs, it's like if, okay, possibility that would happen. Second, this is like flipping a coin, 5 times in a row and it's always heads. Only much worse. The probability of that is much worse. So we're not talking about a coin. We're talking about, if this scientific discovery, and if this animal that never existed, and if this other chemical was combined with this other chemical, and called the same thing, and happened to be exactly the same thing 200 years later, wow. What a coincidence.
Look, who cares about logic, okay? I liked it, and that's enough. You can rationalize that because, I feel good when I like stuff.
They could have called it any other drug. It would have been fine. Anyway.
Call it Ted or I don't know.
Call it something stupid like Jetto or Jet Supreme.
Gelato. Yeah, it's the
because
gelato.
they have no creative bone in their bodies. Yeah, Jet Sun stuff. Yeah. Anyway.
The Jetsons reference. Oh.
the laboratory the people to experiment on something like Brahmin dung. Now, we could only assume this if we also assume that the intoxicating property of Brahmin dung was also in cow dung, the cows that had been fed the experimental meat product.
Oh my god, so forget the actual animals that produces the chemical. Just imagine cows. Like, why?
Regular cows with no radiation.
Completely different animals. Yeah, sure, yeah. Okay.
Maybe MedTech found out about these cows being fed this product, then experimented on their...
Then they maybe experimented on them because, I don't know, why not?
You know what this reminds me of? Do you remember, I forget what episode of the Smudcast it was. It was one I was on, when we did the Twin Perfect video on Batman versus Superman. Do you remember that? Where Twin Perfect's answers to all of the issues with the fight scene between Batman and Superman was, well, maybe he did. Maybe this happened. Maybe that happened. Maybe Batman... How do we know Superman didn't look for his mother? How do we know this? No, it's not in the game. Like, there are things you can assume. Like, there are things you don't need to see because you can assume that they took place. Stuff like this, stuff like where did Jet really come from? Like, why does this contradict itself? No, we don't just don't write it for the writer, okay? Just don't write the game for the writer, please.
I mean, yeah, and I'm still waiting for like why it's not a big. So it's not a big deal because we can just make shit up. Is that his explanation?
Apparently.
Okay,
Apparently,
cool.
it's a contradiction, but it's not a contradiction.
That's what he
It's
said
a
earlier, yeah.
contradiction, but if you really try to think of an explanation, it's not a contradiction.
Even if it was, it's not a big deal. I mean,
Give me a break.
Found the intoxic qualities of the dung and then produced Jet. If that were the case, then Mirnan didn't invent Jet, he reinvented Jet.
Yeah, not saying the
Wait,
guy's name
what?
right really doesn't help his case when he's talking about lore. It just this is so dumb. It's like,
well, he didn't invent Jet; he reinvented it.
yeah, but this is like saying, like, this is like getting Batman's, like, Bruce Wayne's name wrong or Tim Drake's name. Like, it's like, come on, dude, come on.
I forget
Brace.
who it was. Somebody told me that I remember reading once that one of the best marks of the pseudo-intellectual is somebody who very confidently says things that are just not right. Like they'll very confidently misuse words. And that's kind of what this reminds me of, even though it's a name. Like, it's a name you can easily verify. It's a name you should have verified as you were writing your script.
Well, wasn't it a narcissist?
No, a feminist, bro.
Feminist.
They like it to invent their own terms and then be very confident what they're trying to tell you is actually real, and you're like, I don't think that's a thing.
Why is this ongoing phenomenon?
I don't think it exists. Yeah, I don't know where you got that.
Med company like it invented the original Jet, which is why we find it mentioned by Vault-Tec, and Mirnan simply reinvented it. I have a problem with...
Wait a second. You're telling me Mirnan, not Myron, discovered the recipe for Jet from Vault-Tec, somehow reverse engineered it to be exactly the same.
Or he didn't discover it, he just so happened to find the same information that Vault-Tec found 200 years earlier.
But how is it a reinvention? That's what I'm trying to ascertain from this. Does he not know the definition of reinventing something?
And the ridiculous part is you just cut him off in the middle of saying that he doesn't like this explanation. Then why are you coming up with it? Don't be like,
no.
Oh no, this is a contradictory retcon, but if we really wanted to, we can explain it. Just don't. Just say it's a contradictory retcon and it's bad. Why can't you say it's bad?
Because everything has to be good.
It would undermine the entire premise of the video by saying this contradiction is bad. Because the whole point of the video is breaking your own lore isn't a big deal.
It's almost like this video didn't need to be made.
You can just rationalize all your problems, just any problem you have in life. Oh, my wife, she beats me, but yeah, it's she loves me too. It's okay. It balances out. She loves me some days, hates me other days. It's okay. It's part of growing, part of living together, part of being in a healthy relationship, guys.
Yeah, it's a retcon in reality. That's the definition. That's an example. That's how we look at things.
You can rationalize away anything. It doesn't make it good or bad. It just This is what you don't do.
Love, yes.
This is what you don't do in life, folks. If something is good, there are reasons for that. If something is bad, oh my God, it's obvious. You barely have to think about why something's bad. It's why we say the argument for a critique is always, why is something good? You better have a good excuse or a good reason, because when something sucks, there's so many ways to look at something, why it doesn't work or why it's not up to par or whatever. There's all kinds of issues of quality. But when something is
everything's subjective.
Well, when something is in fact of high quality or good, as we like to say, we have a very strict criteria that goes into explaining that. And you have to explain yourself. And if you don't, then you're just making shit up. You're favoriting some aspect for whatever reason, and we see the bias very quickly. That's why when someone says something is good, you better explain yourself well. And we talk about Alpha Protocol or games that are under the radar. We know they suck on other levels. We know they're bad. There's all kinds of bugs. There's all kinds of balance issues. There's all kinds of graphic quality issues and glitches and this and that. All these games we love are like that. But we still come back to them and say, why are they so good? There's things beyond those bugs and little glitches and things like that, as numerous as they are, which gives a quality higher than actual games without those bugs. So, and we have criteria for that. We explain why Fallout New Vegas works, why the story works, why the gameplay works, why the side characters work, why the plot and its branches work. Like, these are all relevant things. Same with Bloodlines. Why do we keep playing Bloodlines? Why do we like being vampires? Not because it's a vampire game and we just happen to like vampires. It's because the game works very well with that idea. They express it well. The premise works well. The variation for replayability is so high, you want to keep trying it again and again. That's a sign of a good game, is replayability. No matter your taste in games. Anyway. Let's go.
That theory, because it takes a whole lot of what ifs. And I'm comfortable with taking what ifs if they make sense, but we really have to stretch with this one. In particular, Myrnin's jet came from Brahmin dung. Brahmin did not exist before the war. Brahmin are mutated.
Yes, you said this already. Come on.
Evolved.
Oh, you mean like T60 power armor?
Highly unlikely that an addictive aspect of Brahmin dung would have remained unchanged
That's weird. Why is the fan moving?
while the animal itself changed from a cow to a Brahmin over the span of a couple hundred years, which is what we would be forced to assume if it was already intoxicating before the war. At any rate, I wanted to talk about retcons today because I think retcons are, more often than not, a good thing.
Wait, they're a good thing?
Okay, I think we're done.
I mean, we can at least hear why he thinks it, even if I think his explanation is going to be stupid.
All right. I mean, if he thinks getting shot in the foot is a good thing, I mean, okay.
It's good that developers have enough passion about Fallout 4 and the Fallout franchise that they want to grow it, that they
Let me just rewind that. I think I skipped a word.
Developers have enough passion about Fallout 4 and the Fallout franchise that they want to grow it, that they want to make it different. We can't expect a new Fallout game to come out and be exactly the same. That would be boring. That would only please the hardcore fans. And of
for
course,
it to be exactly
Bethesda
the
wants to grow
same?
the Fallout brand. They've got to appeal
Why is
to
it
new
boring,
people.
though?
Limiting the game to only
Why-
what we already know also stunts
Why can't you
creative
make something
growth.
new
I
without
love the fact
retconning?
that power armor takes a fusion core and requires a power armor frame. And we would be missing
I
that
don't-
if
I
Bethesda
don't
felt
get it.
so married to the lore that they didn't feel that they had the creative freedom to make this kind of retcon. So retcons are not a bad thing, and I don't think that we can blame Bethesda for making retcons in Fallout 4. The only
Yes, we
retcons
can.
that I don't like are unnecessary ones.
I don't care
Retcons
if you
that
don't
don't
like
add
it,
anything new to
Oxhorn.
the world. They're not
You
creative.
know, it's completely possible to have perfect lore in a sequel. It's completely possible for the next iteration or the next comic book of Superman to not invent any new lore and still be a great comic book of Superman. It's very easy to do that.
Not even like it can invent new lore. It just like you can invent new lore without changing the old lore. You can expand on what you already have. Tell us about something new. Like, okay, here we are in Massachusetts instead of being in Washington, D.C. Here's all this new stuff that's happening in Massachusetts. Here's these new monsters that we only see in Massachusetts because they're mutated versions of creatures that are native to New England. Like, you can do that, and you can do it without contradicting what you had before that. Why, like, he said he likes that they have the freedom to not do the same thing. Why does it need to be the same thing? I don't get why you can't. Why new thing and retconning old things are tied to each other. Why do you need to retcon in order to make new things? I don't get it. Can somebody explain this to me? Why the options are retcon things or do the same thing over and over again?
I think at this point he's just defending his love.
Yeah, it's because I like it. I like it.
Yeah, you like
Things
the
don't make
changes
sense.
to power armor.
Yep.
That's nice. I hope the last 2.5 minutes of this video is like and subscribe. And don't forget to sign up for NordVPN.
Is that his usual shtick?
I have no idea. I just pick... When I do that in all of these videos, I just pick one of those things everybody gets sponsorships from. Nord, Raid, Raycon,
G Fuel, whatever it's called.
HelloFresh. Now, G Fuel sponsors streamers, not YouTube.
Oh, really?
Not video, generally speaking.
I guess
at least I usually use codes from streamers to buy my G Fuel.
Oh, okay.
That's not actually a joke. I drink G Fuel. It's pretty good.
I do see Angry Joe talking.
Oh, does Angry Joe do it? Okay.
Yeah. He has his own flavor.
I don't watch Perturbed Pedro.
I'm glad he got back to his full length videos. That's what he was known for. So anyway.
Have the world more interesting and dynamic. They're just lazy or simple mistakes, like the deal with Jet. All they had to do was not put...
Okay, so he's right, they're lazy, and that makes a bad writer or a creator. So he got that right. Thank you.
That terminal in the Vault-Tec headquarters, and we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, so it's a problem. You're right. Thank you.
That one terminal entry is the only...
Is he trying to retcon himself? Like, this is so weird.
We wouldn't be having these
Apparently.
conversations. Like, yeah, that's why it's an issue, and that's why people downvoted your video.
Right. This video is very meta. He's trying to retcon the video at the end of the video.
Make it all pointless.
I mean, is he saying that adding any new information to the story is a retcon? Yes. Because I guess technically, if you add any new information about what happened earlier, like you show us now we're in Massachusetts, here's some of the history of Massachusetts. I guess, yeah, technically that's a retcon because you're adding to the history, which means you are retroactively adding continuity, but like it's you have to be very, very broad about what retconning is in order to say that going to a new place and learning new things is retconning.
Yeah, but I don't think he understands.
Which I guess maybe that's where the whole thing here is. Maybe that's where the whole disconnect here is between us and him.
Funny enough, he's retconning the word retcon. So.
Well, his definition was the best example to start, but that's fine. You could use the wiki method of explaining things.
And mispronounce names and
anyway.
Contradict himself.
Well,
I guess that's adding to the lore of his video, yeah.
Headcanon is never, ever, it's just funny to hear people start, well, this could have happened. It's like, no, sorry.
Good thing Hawk wasn't here, otherwise he'd be flipping out.
Yeah.
I even don't mind finding Jet in Vault 95.
Of course you don't. You like it.
Because we could have always said that the Gunners brought it there.
Oh, yeah. We could make shit up too. Yeah, that's great. God put it there.
Yeah, I pulled it up.
So with a little more effort, they could have had a decent explanation instead of retconning stuff? Wow, that's crazy. You mean if you put effort into a game, it can be better? and you don't have to contradict your old existing lore? That's nuts.
Well, I think I need a paper bag. Oh my god, this is mind blowing.
All right.
I wouldn't even mind in that locked container because then we could always just say, well, it's a game mechanic. It's an issue with the loot table. But because there's that terminal entry in the Vault Tech headquarters in downtown Boston, we can't make that excuse, which simply makes this a lazy retcon, which is a contradiction, and it bothers me.
What?
But not enough to be peeved at Fallout 4. Not enough
So he's only partially dumb. That's great. Thanks.
to stop playing.
Wait, but
and not enough.
hold on. Wait, did he say going to Boston is a lazy retcon? Maybe I misheard him.
He's when a biased person tells you he's only partially angry or whatever, it's just like, dude, your opinion is not really worth much. What's the problem? Well, I'm only kind of annoyed I lost half a leg. You're like, what?
I always
Left to have
wanted to
the
lose a leg.
experience ruined for me. Let's pick our battles, ladies and gentlemen. Let's choose when and when not to be offended. When and when not to...
Yeah, I love it when my intelligence is insulted. That's always a great feeling.
Why did you make this video then?
Because he's a biased fanboy. That's all he is.
Yep.
All his channels, or what he talks about, is Fallout, right? He just rambles on about Fallout.
Talks about the lore, I think, right?
Sure.
I think I've seen one or
He
two
describes what he's playing. It's like imagine you record yourself for an hour playing Fallout and you're describing what you're actually doing, like a story. You're like, okay.
Turned on my console. I grabbed my controller, made sure it was fully charged.
Well, he goes into detail. It's kind of boring, but people like it.
Take up arms, angry rebellion, and let's enjoy things for what they are.
Okay.
Oh
That
my
is the secret
God,
to enjoying
wow.
the games that we spend our money on, and that's also the secret to...
No, let's not enjoy things the way they are, because that's how you get mediocre garbage year after year.
Why can't I argue the way things they are as being good or bad? What's wrong with that? Why can't I not lie to myself and invent shit in my brain?
Yeah, why can't I take value for what I spend my money on? Why is that a bad thing?
Yeah, if a game is 80% good, why can't I argue, well, the 20% is bad because of X, Y, and Z? What's wrong with that?
Oh,
Yeah,
because
why-
you should just enjoy things the way they are. Don't ask questions. Just consume product and get excited for next product.
These
That's
sugar-coated...
literally what he just said. I don't even have to invent a whole convoluted explanation for it.
Yeah, these
You
sugar-coated
spent your
razor
money
blades
already. Too late.
are sweet and tangy, but I got this bloody mouth at the end of it. That's...
Why can't you just be happy with what you paid for?
Exactly.
Focus on the
okay?
positives. Yeah, thanks.
Look, because they also they receive your money and they're happy too. Okay. So they're happy. You should be happy.
Like, that is a... Listen, if you guys take away, chat, nothing else from this stream, no, don't just enjoy the things you play. If there's bad parts of the things you play, point it out. Nobody gets any better if they never find out what they did wrong.
Yeah.
Like, give me a break. Do
wonder
not
what the-
just consume product and get excited for next product.
All right, less than a
Yeah.
minute.
At that point, just burn your money. Like, what's the point?
Simply being happy people. But all of this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on retcons, ladies and gentlemen? Do you think that retcons should just simply be
There it is.
forbidden and no one should
It's
ever
just
do
my
anything
opinion.
that could possibly be seen as a contradiction?
all just
or
my
do you
opinion.
think that
None of what I
Bethesda
said just
and other
matters.
creators are free to make addition retcons and even alteration retcons?
Well, at least he's aware that he's saying bullshit, and his rationalization is just in his own head. He's not dumb about that.
He's aware of what he's saying. But he's not. He doesn't understand what he's saying. If that makes any sense. Like,
Well, no, he probably knows his limitations as a human being. Therefore, I am but one small speck in the grand argument that is Fallout. So it's like,
but
yeah,
he still thinks he's right.
It's fine. I don't care.
I would love to see this guy's opinion on Fallout 76.
Boy, let's
That
not.
would be a contradiction.
Anyway, let's go to stream memes. I'm done with this guy. He's pretty much done
Yeah, this is.
for the month. Here's Ultimate Fatty. Hey. Speaking of burning cash, yeah, thanks for the 5, buddy. I'll take that. Do we even have stream memes? Let me check. Da-da-da.
Yes, we do.
Oh, no. Mike Testa, Stream Meme King. My disappearance on Stream Memes Explained. All Ruby and no Smud makes Mike a dull boy. And then at the last sentence, you combine dull boy into one word. Why would I... What is... Are you streaming Ruby?
I guess he's been watching Ruby instead of the Smudcast.
Oh, I mean, you do you, Mike, but
For reasons unknown.
Yeah, they've been wanting you to watch Ruby.
Why? Why would I? From what I've heard, it's not a good idea.
It's a bad anime, yeah.
Zebras are black, zebras are white. Oh my god.
It's a 3D anime. If you didn't
This
know.
blind man. He's like, I can't read the buttons anyway. It's hot in here.
It was also made in America. I don't know if it counts as an anime.
Oh.
Oh, right, yeah.
It was made by Rooster Teeth. Like, why would you watch that on purpose?
I only watch bad shows when Shiny's in the room because he wants me to. So I go, okay, fine. Thanks,
You
Shiny.
like to see Shiny angry.
Shiny's not even online right now.
Yeah. The retcon button, yeah. Gorgeous Rex, how did this lawyer get power armor training? Courtrooms of the future.
Future.
What is that? Oh boy. Is that Jedi something? Should I
Is that
try?
No,
Shaq?
that's Oblivion.
Oh, it's Oblivion. Okay. Never mind. Couldn't tell. When you Buddha shoot the guy.
About to.
When you about to shoot the guy in the blue PJs, but he pulls a minigun from his fucking ass. Okay.
Is that Shaq?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay.
Shaq is
Dang.
everywhere. He is advertising everything. He just makes so much money selling random stuff. It's amazing what he gets involved in. All right, works fine for me. The game doesn't look that bad. Mods will fix this. And then, of course, the crashes. I wonder if he forgives crashes in Fallout 4. Meanwhile, I have 500 of these things, 20 power armors, and still don't know what I'm doing in this game, just killing everyone. Fallout 4, really? Okay.
I was gonna say if people can forgive crashes in Fallout 76, they can forgive crashes in Fallout 4.
Oh, that's probably true. Retcons are usually a good thing. Yeah, that was
Wait,
That
did
was
Shiny
sad.
leave the server?
no Shini's.
Yeah.
Did he?
Oh,
No, I think he's still here. I've seen him.
I
pop
don't
up.
see him anywhere.
Yeah, I checked and he wasn't in there. I don't know
he's
why.
not-
I don't ask.
That sucks.
None of my business.
Anyway, Alex Hale, I have an army. We have a Liberty Prime. I have a settlement. That's good.
Actually, do the Drax one. That would be funny too.
Retcon everywhere. Well, not exactly, but to Oxhorn, I guess you wouldn't mind if it was like that. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. 9/11, what's your emergency? Another new settlement needs our help. Oh, boy. Preston.
God, I hate this guy.
General, a settlement needs your help on the moon. What? Well, maybe that's the next plot of settling on the moon.
It's
Just wait till
Fallout.
they'll make a spin-off of this guy. You'll see.
That's perfect. Shining scene. Uh-oh. Don't tell me another settlement needs my help. Yep. Raiders, most likely. Bring it on. I don't know. I got bored after the 7th time. I was like, what's the point of this?
To be a good person, Smud.
I don't... Yeah, I'm fine with that.
To be a happier person.
I just want to know what this is leading to because I don't see a point. I know you spend too much time doing side quests when your son is older than you. Okay. Yo, dog,
Yeah,
I
that's
heard you
always
like
funny in
retcons,
Fallout
so you
4.
retcon your retcons so you can have no idea what's going on. Yeah. That does happen. In certain series I may not mention. Do better, man. Oxhorn. No, I don't think I will.
That's great.
Two shows that probably aren't very good anymore. Or if they were popular once, I don't know how long that lasted. And the final one, no, you can't just retcon all of Fallout 1 and a major character in New Vegas. With a side quest, you're literally destroying the lore of the franchise. Haha, kid, ghoul and fridge, no need, food, and no age. There's Bethesda. Yay. Okay. Well, that was Stream Memes. Fallout's one of my favorite franchises, and to have a fan of Fallout be this dumb is pretty sad. You just have to admit the game is not perfect. It's lots of flaws, and the continuity between the series is obvious. So,
One day, it will get back on track.
well, who knows? Anyway, guys, that was Oxhorn. I'm going to leave a little comment on his video. You may do so too. I think stuff like this should be called out, and he's a big boy. He can handle it. So, thank you for listening. Have yourself a great evening, and we'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye now.